Chapter 1121, Finally Seeing He Fan's True Inheritance. Chapter 1121, Finally Seeing He Fan's True Inheritance. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. This upper extreme heavenly eagle is an immemorial desolate beast, no wonder it gives off such an abnormal feeling. If we are going to attack him, we will need to deal with the eagle first. Did you forget what he said? Other than this eagle, he also has other ancient desolate beasts. Is he an enslavement path Gu immortal? If he is an enslavement path Gu immortal, he would be easier to deal with. This path is vulnerable to direct attacks. Even if he is an immortal, we are also Gu immortals. That might not work. Don't be hasty, we will see on Immortal Succession Mountain. Even up until the immortals arrived at Immortal Succession Mountain, some Gu immortals were still talking about the upper extreme heavenly eagle. This was not strange. An immemorial desolate beast which had rank 8 battle strength upon maturity, this news was a shock to the immortals. Fang Yuan listened to their words, but he still showed a calm and composed expression. There were no flaws in his acting. Unwittingly, the immortals' guesses of him had already distorted from reality. Fang Yuan was happy to see this. The more wrong things they assumed, the greater his advantage. If he was really treated as an enslavement path Gu immortal, then they would get to see the power of a transformation path and strength path Gu immortal. Conversely, during the conversation, Fang Yuan continued to probe and obtained a lot of precious intelligence. These Gu immortals seem to have been isolated from the world for too long. They are not good at confrontations or dealing with people. Not just in terms of words, they are not as crafty as Gu immortals outside. I could easily probe their background. They have barely any shrewdness, and their methods are outdated. All in all, these Gu immortals are split into 2 groups. One is led by old immortal Xianxia. The 4 Gu immortals are related by bloodline. The other group are the 3 blood-sworn immortals. They are Zhou Min, Tua, and Feng Jun. They actually have a blood path leader. The final 2 are loners. As expected, they do not work with the groups. Fang Yuan snickered internally. Places with people will have competition for benefits. He Fan Grotto Heaven was no exception. But evidently, the conflict here was small and low level. The Gu immortals were not skilled at competing against one another. It truly paled in comparison to Northern Plains. And most importantly, these Gu immortals had very little knowledge. Fang Yuan had already probed. These Gu immortals could not get into Treasure Yellow Heaven, or rather, they did not even know about its existence. But look at their identities. They were descendants of criminals. It made sense that old ancestor He Fan prevented them from connecting to Treasure Yellow Heaven. If they could connect to Treasure Yellow Heaven, it would be different. Not only would they have updated methods, they would be able to trade and gain knowledge. Even without trading, they would grow in experience. It would be an immense growth. Immortal Succession Mountain was a tall, lone mountain. It was not a famous mountain or river. It had 10 levels, getting smaller towards the top. There was evident signs of man-made design in it. Around the mountain were forests that had lots of resources in them. Fang Yuan was quite amazed. Even though He Fan Grotto Heaven was isolated from the world, it had no calamities and tribulations, and because it could not connect to Treasure Yellow Heaven, the resources inside were truly too rich from generations of accumulation. The immortals followed the brass bell heavenly spirit, landing in the single stone pavilion near the mountain peak. The stone pavilion was very simple in structure, but even though it was just a pavilion, it had a grand atmosphere. The pavilion was supported by 8 thick pillars. There was a stone tablet in the pavilion that was eye-catching. The stone tablet was huge like an elephant. It took up almost all of the space in the pavilion. There were words carved on it. The brass bell heavenly spirit entered the stone pavilion. Hanging on a pillar of the stone pavilion, there was a hook there. It stopped moving after getting into position. Old immortal Xianxia said, "Superior immortal, you have just arrived. You must have many questions. Look at this stone tablet, it will answer a lot of your questions." Fang Yuan was prepared. He looked at it patiently. A while later, he finally understood everything. It turned out that back then, He Fan's most beloved granddaughter, He Fengyu, had vanished, along with Attitude Gu. He Fan lost his precious granddaughter, but there was nothing he could do. His lifespan was almost expended. He could only place his immortal aperture down and absorb the immemorial azure heaven fragment, losing his freedom. The few He tribe Gu immortals who could not take care of her were locked in He Fan Grotto Heaven. Not only was their freedom taken away, their immortal apertures were even taken out and fused into He Fan Grotto Heaven. This way, He Fan Grotto Heaven became even bigger. Before He Fan absorbed the fragment of immemorial azure heaven, he had already made his arrangements, leaving behind his true inheritance and the heavenly crystal eagle nest. But he could not stop thinking about his granddaughter. He wanted his descendants to look for her. Thus, he added an additional step, that was the aura of Attitude Gu which was needed. From his perspective, even if he did not show up, with He tribe's power at that time, they could definitely find He Fengyu's location and get back Attitude Gu. But in truth, he was too optimistic. Or rather, because of kinship, he refused to accept the truth. He felt that He Fengyu was still very likely alive. Because of his miscalculation, He Fan's true inheritance went uninherited for all this time, until now, after Feng Yuan disguised himself and opened the heavenly crystal eagle nest. This had to be considered an error by old ancestor He Fan. But he was a rank 8 great expert after all. Before his death, he sensed this error as well. He thought, if nobody from the main tribe inherits his true inheritance, what would happen? If that happened, either He tribe would be wiped out or become weakened, without any worthy descendants. What He Fan thought of was, in that case, he might as well prepare another batch, and let the people in the Grotto Heaven inherit his true inheritance, passing it down in that way. They had He tribe's bloodline after all. Thus, after setting up the heavenly crystal eagle nest, before his death, He Fan added a new rule to his true inheritance. He set a timing. Several hundred years later, if nobody from the main tribe obtains his true inheritance, then the descendants in the Grotto Heaven would be allowed to roam Immortal Succession Mountain and find their own opportunities. This was stated in the tablet. Old ancestor, He Fan, left behind his key true inheritance on Immortal Succession Mountain. He set up a lot of smaller inheritances as well before his lifespan ran out. The other He tribe criminal immortals cried and grieved. They felt that they let him down. They died together with him. But before dying, they imitated He Fan and left behind their stone tablet inheritances on Immortal Succession Mountain. Their true inheritances were hidden inside. The He tribe members who were in Northern Plains were searching for Attitude Gu, but there was nothing they could find. Time passed. The time limit that old ancestor He Fan set had long since elapsed. Thus, in He Fan Grotto Heaven, Immortal Succession Mountain was opened up to the mortals to explore. As a result, Gu immortals started appearing in He Fan Grotto Heaven. However, even though these mortals could compete for He Fan's true inheritance, it was too difficult to explore Immortal Succession Mountain. Although many mortals obtained the true inheritances, and a portion of them became Gu immortals, there had never been anyone who got to the mountain peak and obtained the first true inheritance. According to the stone tablet, if the person who obtains the first true inheritance becomes a Gu immortal, they would be the owner of He Fan Grotto Heaven. They would have the authority to forgive the sins of these criminal immortals. They would regain freedom and return to He tribe. But before this, no matter how many generations had gone by, they could not have the He surname. They could only have other names. It would remind them of their identities as criminals. After reading the contents of the stone tablet, Feng Yuan finally understood. The confusion inside him was lifted. No wonder these Gu immortals have such complex expressions and emotions towards me. They have both kind and ill intentions at the same time. Feng Yuan thought about it from their perspective. If it were him, he would be having even more complex feelings. According to He Fan's rules, the time limit was over, so be it the He tribe main immortals or these criminal immortals, they were qualified to vie for He Fan's true inheritance. These immortals had been enthusiastically raising descendants to obtain He Fan's true inheritance, to open up the Grotto Heaven and regain freedom. As for these Gu immortals, they had already obtained other inheritances. They were not qualified to compete for He Fan's true inheritance. Thus, the Gu immortals in He Fan Grotto Heaven did not have much conflict normally. they lived quite peacefully. Originally, they did not think that anyone from the main tribe would come. After all, it had been so long, but nobody came. With Fang Yuan's sudden appearance, their preconceptions were broken. And because of the rules on the stone tablet, they had to go welcome him, even though they were against his arrival and mentally not prepared. From their perspective, He Fan's true inheritance belonged to them already. As long as they continued to nurture descendants, one day, someone would ascend the mountain peak and obtain He Fan's true inheritance. Thus, they did not want to see Fang Yuan's arrival, but they had no choice but to follow the rules. The heavenly spirit might be mindless, but He Fan had considered this before dying. Even though it was rather unreliable, it still firmly carried on He Fan's will after his death. And He Fan still had one method of restriction. Becoming a Gu immortal would have calamities and tribulations. Whenever they are unable to pass the tribulations, these Gu immortals would come to Immortal Succession Mountain and ask the Heavenly Spirit for help. The Heavenly Spirit would use the immortal Gu in the first tablet's true inheritance to stall their calamities and tribulations. Even though they could be safe for the moment, they would be under the Heavenly Spirit's control. The Heavenly Spirit only had to use a certain method in the true inheritance to remove the method of stalling calamities and tribulations, causing them to die. Many Gu immortals were able to pass the calamities and tribulations early on, but they did not know about Treasure Yellow Heaven. Even though He Fan Grotto Heaven had a lot of resources, there was a limit to its variety. These Gu immortals' cultivation needs could not be fulfilled. Thus, after many calamities and tribulations, when they got stronger, these Gu immortals were gradually unable to pass them. Eventually, they had no choice but to seek help from the Heavenly Spirit. They all fell into He Fan's trap and became controlled by the Heavenly Spirit. Even though He Fan had died for many years, he still had great control over He Fan Grotto Heaven as a result. Old Ancestor He Fan, as expected and worthy of the champion that led He tribe to its most glorious era. Even after he died, he still had complete control of He Fan Grotto Heaven. These Gu immortals all revere him. But what this tablet states might not be too factual. I don't believe that those criminal immortals were willing to die together with old ancestor He Fan. Evidently, regardless of their wishes, He Fan still acted in this ruthless and cruel manner. He is truly praiseworthy. If they were allowed to live, He Fan Grotto Heaven might have been broken through from the inside already. Thoughts flashed past his mind rapidly. Fang Yuan's gaze retracted from the stone tablet. He slowly raised his head to look at the brass bell Heavenly Spirit. He asked, then, what should I do to obtain this true inheritance? Once he said that, the other Gu immortals held their breaths and concentrated, looking over with concerned gazes. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1122, Troublesome Final Test. Chapter 1122, Troublesome Final Test. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. The stone tablet in the pavilion stated, be it a main tribe member brought over by the Heavenly Spirit or a criminal immortal who ascended the mountain, they had one final, most important test before inheriting He Fan's true inheritance. But the contents of this final test were not written on the stone tablet. They had to ask the Heavenly Spirit. The Heavenly Spirit was mindless, but remembered He Fan's instructions. Thus, Fang Yuan asked it. Soon, the immortals heard the brass bell Heavenly Spirit shake, creating a long and loud sound. When the sound vibrated off the pillars, there were changes to the tablet. At the end of the original content, new lines were appearing. The immortals gasped upon seeing it. This says that He Fan Grotto Heaven is the true inheritance itself. Whoever obtains the true inheritance becomes He Fan Grotto Heaven's owner. But to obtain He Fan's true inheritance, there is one final test. It is actually this. No wonder old ancestor He Fan set a rule that if the inheritor appears, all of us need to go and welcome him. Old ancestor is magnanimous. He planned meticulously. Even though we are criminals, he had never forgotten us. He is still concerned about us descendants. The immortals discussed. They felt admiration towards old ancestor He Fan. Some had red eyes as they almost cried. Fang Yuan looked at the new information. He was frowning, his expression had turned heavy. The contents clearly told him what the test was. As long as I pass the final test, I can obtain He Fan's true inheritance. But what is this? It wants me to obtain the votes of half of the Gu immortals inside He Fan Grotto Heaven. And I must complete it within 3 years in the Grotto Heaven's time. Fang Yuan shook his head. Old Ancestor He Fan's final test was out of his expectations. Evidently, he was siding with the Gu immortals inside He Fan Grotto Heaven. As an outsider, it was very difficult for Fang Yuan to obtain their support. But Fang Yuan soon reacted. He understood He Fan's intentions. Old Ancestor He Fan set the rules to encourage his inheritor to take in these Gu immortals within He Fan Grotto Heaven. After all, Gu immortals were hard to nurture. By taking them in, it would benefit He tribe greatly. Thus, this not only tested the inheritor's abilities, their interpersonal skills were also tested, whether they could be a skilled leader to unite others or not. He Fan was using his true inheritance to choose a leader for He tribe. He was not just looking for a Gu immortal expert. Old fellow, you are already dead, why are you considering so many things? It is so troublesome. Fang Yuan thought, but on the surface, he sighed as he spoke in heartfelt fashion. Ancestor He Fan was thinking for He tribe the entire time. He put in so much effort. As a descendant, I am deeply moved. Yes, yes. The immortals heard his words and responded. Originally, these Gu immortals were feeling very worried. After all, if Fang Yuan obtained He Fan's true inheritance, they did not know what would happen to criminal immortals like themselves. But now, with old Ancestor He Fan's arrangement, their welfare was assured. Fang Yuan kept his moved expression as he turned around, standing before the stone tablet, facing the immortals in the pavilion. He asked, "Then, how can I obtain all of your support?" As Fang Yuan had expected, what he obtained was silence. Times were different now. Initially, they were wary of him, but now, Fang Yuan needed to get half of the Gu immortals' recognition. In that case, the situation was reversed. It was completely different. The immortals looked at each other. Nobody spoke. Only their gaze towards Fang Yuan changed. Earlier, they were cautious and tried to express kindness while concealing their ill intent, but now, they had distant gazes. They got on their high horses and thought about it internally. Fang Yuan was not rushed. He stood on the spot, waiting for their reply. After a while of silence, the most experienced and oldest Gu immortal, Xianxia, could not hold it in anymore. He coughed. Today's matters progressed too quickly. We are simply unprepared for it. Sigh, maybe I am getting old. All this thinking is making my head hurt. I cannot process it yet. Superior immortal, you must have had a long journey to reach here and are tired, right? Why don't you go take a rest first and relax? We can think about this later. This old fox. Fang Yuan snickered internally. Old immortal Xianxia's words were well received by the Gu immortals present. They answered him with great enthusiasm. They were fragmented earlier, but now, it looked like they were united, dealing with the outsider Fang Yuan together. However, so what if I agree to your stalling? Fang Yuan had expected them to respond in that manner. His expression did not change. He nodded and said reluctantly, "Immortal Xianxia, you have a point." Xianxia showed a smile of victory, but soon he concealed it. My accommodations are crude, but we have some tea for you. If you do not mind, it would be my great honor to accommodate you. Xianxia invited warmly, but he did not give a clear reply to Fang Yuan's words. Fang Yuan smiled in a reluctant manner, nodding, "I will trouble you in that case." He called it crude, but old immortal Xianxia was naturally just being humble. His accommodations were not crude at all. Instead, they were very elegant and grand. A number of palaces sat on top of a mountain peak. This mountain seemed to be man-made. The top was flat, palaces were erected all over it. There were golden bricks and green tiles, with many beautifully crafted pillars. Xianxia and his Gu immortal subordinates lived here. Not just them, a large number of Gu masters and mortals as well. These are all my descendants, please excuse them, superior immortal. At my age, I enjoy having descendants and nurturing them. Xianxia explained. Fang Yuan nodded, this shows that you are someone who values relationships. Xianxia looked at Fang Yuan with deep meaning, who would not like people who values relationships and loyalty. He he he. Ha ha ha. Fang Yuan laughed too. Seeing Xianxia and Fang Yuan talking so harmoniously, the other three Gu immortals had relaxed emotions. Just like this, Fang Yuan stayed here for the time being. Strangely, since the first day, Xianxia had not shown himself again, and did not meet with Fang Yuan again. Fang Yuan was not anxious, he waited patiently. 4 days later. In the palaces. Fang Yuan and Qianlu strolled in the long walkways. Qianlu was one of the female immortals, she had long hair in 2 buns and a bubbly nature. In terms of bloodline, she was old immortal Qianxia's great-granddaughter. Young Master He Cheng, look at that lotus, I love its color. Qianlu pointed at the lotus pond and smiled. This walkway was quite special, it crossed over the entire lotus pond. There were lotuses inside the lotus pond of all colors, they were floating aimlessly, it was a beautiful sight. These last days, even though old immortal Qianxia did not meet with Fang Yuan, Qianlu was keeping him company, to look at all the scenic sights in the palaces. This yellow lotus is cute, pure and innocent, it really suits you, Lu'er. Fang Yuan smiled. Qianlu lowered her head, she was embarrassed, she said faintly, young master, what are you saying? Lu'er. Lu'er was just happy from seeing these flowers. I feel very happy seeing you as well, Lu'er. Fang Yuan smiled as he extended his arms, holding Lu'er's hands. Qianli's body shook, she subconsciously wanted to get free, but Fang Yuan's hands were holding her tightly. Qianli's face was bright red, even with her Gu immortal cultivation level, her brain was in chaos, she struggled as she murmured, young master, you. Fang Yuan took a step forward, his body almost completely touching Qianlu. Qianlu quickly moved back, because her body was unstable, she fell backwards. Fang Yuan held her in his arms as she fell. Be careful, don't fall. His gentle voice entered Qianli's ears, when Qianlu reacted, she was already lying in Fang Yuan's arms. Qianlu raised her head, she saw Fang Yuan, who was smiling with a hint of cheekiness in his gaze. Qianlu was extremely embarrassed, she punched Fang Yuan's chest softly, young master, you are too naughty, you bullied me. Saying this, she struggled out of Fang Yuan's embrace. Fang Yuan gasped, he took a step back, showing intense pain on his face. Qianlu quickly moved forward, asking him with deep concern, young master, how are you? Fang Yuan breathed in deeply, to speak the truth. Not long ago, I engaged in a fierce battle. It is not easy to inherit He Fan true inheritance. Many Gu immortals in the tribe are not willing to see it happen. So you are injured. Why didn't you tell me? Qianlu stomped her feet, her embarrassment was gone, she looked at Fang Yuan's chest as she asked, does it still hurt? It is a small injury, it is no issue. But with higher cultivation level, my Dao marks are deeper, the injuries I suffered are more severe. Fang Yuan smiled, before shifting the topic, however, your great-grandfather refined Gu and suffered injuries, he is in a similar state as me, right? Otherwise, why would he not meet me for the last few days? Panic flashed across Qianli's eyes, she stammered and tried to respond to Fang Yuan. Old immortal Qianxia could not refuse to meet Fang Yuan without any reason, thus, the excuse he gave was that he had suffered a backlash from Gu refinement failure, his injuries were severe and he could not meet guests. Of course, at this timing, how could he suddenly get injured from refining Gu? Both parties knew the reason, they did not speak it. On that night, the 4 Gu immortals including Qianxia engaged in a secret discussion. Qianlu reported, Ancestor, young master He Cheng asked me about your injury today. Oh. He finally lost his patience, huh? Qianxia smiled. Thankfully, I managed to conceal it, he was not suspicious. But as time passes, I am afraid. Qianlu was worried. The other 3 Gu immortals looked at each other, smiling. Qianlu was well protected by her family, she was unhardened and innocent, she did not know that Fang Yuan knew about it clearly. The fact that he asked about Qianxia's injuries was a subtle reminder. The male Gu immortal Chen Liji thought for a moment before saying, "It seems that we have to talk to this He Qing properly. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1123, What is this Gu's name? Chapter 1123, What is this Gu's name? Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Old immortal Chen Qi shook his head. He said with an unmoved expression, "So what if we wait a few more days? There is no rush." Chen Liji said worriedly, "He understands the situation. If we drag this out, he might get annoyed. If he is forced away and goes to Zheng Tuo's side, it would be troublesome." "Little Ji, don't worry." Chen Qi smiled, analyzing. The final test of the true inheritance requires half of the Gu immortals in He Fan Grotto Heaven to support He Qing. Right now in He Fan Grotto Heaven, disregarding He Qing himself, there are 9 Gu immortals. We have 4 people on our side, we are nearly half of the total. This is a huge quantity. As long as he gets our support, he would already be one step from winning. As long as he gets one more person's vote, he would succeed. There is no way he did not consider this. Even if he gives up on our side and go to the other Gu immortals, he would face trouble. The situation is different now. He is an outsider. If he wants our support, he has to give up some benefits. He needs to put up something for our gain. Moreover, those 3, Zheng Tuo and the others, are more ambitious. Chen Liji did not speak. Instead, Chen Wanyun said, "Old ancestor, actually, I have an idea. If He Qing cannot get half of the Gu immortals' votes, wouldn't he fail? As long as He Fan true inheritance remains on Immortal Succession Mountain, one day, our descendants would ascend to the top and obtain it, right? We have been guarding He Fan's true inheritance for countless generations. Even old ancestor He Fan gave us the rights to vie for it. Are we really going to give it to an outsider?" "He Qing is not an outsider, he is from the main tribe." Chen Lu rebuked. "Lu don't forget, the main tribe is enjoying freedom and glory in the outside world. As for us, we have been trapped here for generations, suffering in torment." Chen Wanyun said grimly. Chen Lu had a bitter expression. She stopped talking. Chen Qi shook his head. "Yun I had considered your words long ago. This would not work. Firstly, it is extremely difficult for mortals to ascend Immortal Succession Mountain. Even if we nurture them and a lucky person shows up, when would they finally inherit the true inheritance? Decades? Centuries? Nobody knows. Secondly, even though He Qing is alone, don't forget about the He tribesmen behind him. There are a huge number of He tribe Gu immortals. If he fails, that is only his personal failure. He tribe's Gu immortals are going to continue coming here. By then, can we stop them all? Are we going to stop all of the main tribe's Gu immortal? Can we? Other than the 4 of us, can Zheng Tuo and the rest be trusted?" These Gu immortals in He Fan Grotto Heaven did not know about Treasure Yellow Heaven. After so many years and generations, they could not connect to Treasure Yellow Heaven. Thus, they had no idea what happened to He tribe. Fang Yuan lied and concealed the truth. He easily deceived these Gu immortals, running around them in circles. Chen Qi's words made the rest of the immortals' expressions change. Chen Lu added, "That's right, today, young Master He Qing told me that it was a tough process to defeat those He tribe Gu immortals and obtain victory. Even until now, he is still injured." Chen Qi nodded, continuing to analyze. He Qing was able to emerge victorious. He is not ordinary at all. He has rank 7 cultivation level, and the upper extreme heavenly eagle with him. He has great prospects. If we help him now, it would be giving him timely assistance. When we return to the main tribe, we will have a firm foundation under him. Wouldn't that be great? However, we are not going to help him without any rewards. He has to pay a price. If he does not give up some benefits, he would not cherish our help. He would not feel gratitude towards us. Old ancestor is right. Chen Liji said. We will not go wrong listening to ancestor. Chen Lu smiled. Chen Qi sighed eerily. He looked at the 3 Gu immortals, saying with deep emotions, I am old, my lifespan is almost up. I only want you descendants to live better in the future. When I go into the door of life and death, I will rest in peace. Ancestor, don't say things like that, you will definitely live a long time. Chen Li's eyes turned red. Chen Li Ji said firmly, Ancestor, don't forget about lifespan Gu. To obtain our support, that He Cheng has to give us something, lifespan Gu is definitely one of our conditions. Chen Qi's eyes flashed deeply, he looked at Chen Lu, forget about lifespan Gu, at the very least, we need to make sure Lu Er fulfills her wish, and gets together with her lover. Chen Li's face was flushed red with embarrassment, she stood up as she stomped her feet, Ancestor, you are making fun of me again. Ha ha ha. In the secret room, laughter was echoing. At the same time, Fang Yuan stood on the garden of his accommodation, raising his head towards the night sky. This He Fan Grotto heaven had a clear day and night, daytime was long, while nighttime was short. This was something that only happened in grotto heavens, blessed lands usually did not have day and night. He Fan Grotto heaven's night sky had no stars, but the darkness was not pitch black, if one looked closely, it had azure color. A cool wind blew, Fang Yuan's arms were behind his back, he looked at the sky as he sorted out the information that he had obtained recently. These last days, he had been interacting with Chen Lu, obtaining a lot of precious information from this gullible girl, he had clear and extensive knowledge regarding He Fan Grotto Heaven and the Gu immortals inside it. Moreover, he had developed his ideas regarding He Fan true inheritance further. It is almost time, in just 2 days, the time will be ripe. Fang Yuan thought, cold light flashed across his eyes, shining deeply. 2 days went by in an instant. It was noon, bright sunlight radiated in the palace, making it extremely lively. Winds blew, birds chirped, it was a beautiful sight. From outside Chen Qi's room, Fang Yuan's voice could be heard, I came here without informing you, I hope you can forgive me. He finally lost his patience. But he already waited for quite some time. Chen Qi was not surprised. The entire group of palaces was a huge mortal Gu house, Fang Yuan's actions were all under his observation. The door opened on its own. Chen Qi sat on his bed, half lying down, he said weakly, esteemed guest, you are here, but I am unable to get up and attend to you. Fang Yuan quickly walked in, standing in front of the bed, saying worriedly, it seems that you are heavily injured. You are a rule path Gu immortal, after considering deeply, I thought of a way to lighten your injuries. Chen Qi had no injuries, superior immortal, I am grateful for your concern, but my injury is not something that can be healed easily. Fang Yuan smiled, friend, you might not know, my immortal killer move is a signature method of our tribe. Even though the core immortal Gu is still in the tribe, I know the content of the killer move. I will pass this immortal killer move to you, you can change the core and it might help with your injuries. How can I accept this great gift? Chen Qi quickly rejected. Fang Yuan said warmly, I feel like we are close friends, these last few days, I have been imposing on all of you. The killer move will be my gift in return. Superior immortal, this gift is simply too valuable. Chen Qi continued to reject it. Fang Yuan's expression changed, his tone became very worried, how can an immortal killer move express my true sincerity? Oh. Honestly speaking, this He Fan true inheritance's final test is troubling me greatly. I hope you can give me some advice. Chen Qi heard this and his eyes shined, he understood Fang Yuan's words. He was here to exchange benefits for support. Chen Qi subconsciously sat up, saying, in my humble opinion, this matter is like refining Gu. When refining Gu, the fire is very important. It has to be large at times, and small at other times, we have to deal with important matters more patiently. I am ashamed. I have a lot of interest in Gu refinement, so I spouted nonsense, please ignore me. This was not nonsense, it was simply bullshit. As a rule path Gu immortal, why are you so interested in refinement path? But Fang Yuan knew what he was trying to say, he smiled, the main tribe has countless books on refinement path, as long as I obtain the true inheritance, I will be able to grant everyone freedom. When you return to the main tribe, these books will all be accessible to you. And I have collected a number of refinement path methods and Gu recipes as well. When I succeed, I can give them all to you, why not? Chen Qi nodded, showing a pleased expression. But he quickly said, I love refinement path, it is truly a time-wasting hobby. But my nephew Chen Li Ji is an enslavement path Gu immortal, he is so envious of your upper extreme heavenly eagle. Fang Yuan's expression sank. There is only one upper extreme heavenly eagle, it cannot be given away. But there are a lot of iron crown eagles in the main tribe, they are famous in northern plains. I can assure that everyone will get one once we return. Chen Qi's joy flashed on his face, he sighed. In the past, old ancestor He Fan suppressed Xiao tribe, it was to obtain their secret of raising eagles. To think that after so many years, they had already developed to this extent. But our ancestors were criminals, when we return to the main tribe, what circumstances will we face? I am truly worried. No need to worry, I can assure that everyone will be very welcomed back in He tribe, after all, your return means that the tribe becomes stronger as well. Fang Yuan paused before saying, as for the crime, it occurred so many generations ago, once I get the true inheritance, I will spare everyone. You have all defended He Fan Grotto Heaven for so many years, your merits outweigh your crimes, and because you also helped me obtain the true inheritance. When I return to the main tribe, I will uphold justice for everyone. Chen Qi smiled, superior immortal, you are a dragon among men, an absolute genius, your words are truly reliable, after hearing this, I am somewhat assured. I thank you for your trust. We all have He tribe's bloodline, we are one family. However, as for the other immortals outside, it will depend on their performance. Fang Yuan vaguely suggested. His meaning was, first come first serve, whoever supports him first will gain greater benefits when they return to the main tribe. Chen Qi nodded, he was a sly fox, he naturally understood what Fang Yuan meant. He smiled, superior immortal, your words are truly enlightening, they are amazing. Especially the word family, it is so apartment. Saying so, he looked at Fang Yuan, seeing his slight smile, he felt deeper confidence, he asked, what do you think of little Lu? Fang Yuan's smile faded, he answered, intelligent and eloquent, innocent and lively, she is very attractive. I will not lie to you, Lu Er is secretly in love with you. Sigh, it is a pity. Superior immortal, you are such a talented person, how could she match you? Sigh, as her ancestor, I am unable to fulfill her wish. I only hope that Lu Er, this poor child, is able to forget about superior immortal and find her own happiness in the future. Chen Lu sighed. Fang Yuan no longer smiled, he frowned as he considered, before saying solemnly, I will not lie to you either, I am in love with Chen Lu, I am willing to marry her as my wife. If he really loved her, he should be yelling happily in excitement, he would not show a solemn expression after considering it. But Chen Qi ignored it completely, as if he could not understand it. Fang Yuan snickered internally, he could understand why. This Chen Qi kept saying he was thinking for his descendants' future, but was that true? He was sacrificing Chen Lu to gain his own benefits. Chen Qi laughed loudly, Fang Yuan's reply was very satisfactory to him, even though he said it reluctantly. He went overboard, his smile vanished, he sighed deeply, sigh, it is a pity that my lifespan is running out, I will not be able to attend you and Lu Er's wedding. Fang Yuan instantly understood, this old fellow was asking for lifespan Gu. His expression turned grim, he stopped smiling, he said dryly, that's not the case at all, in my opinion, you are truly hale and hearty, your appetite is truly great. Old immortal Chen Qi chuckled as he looked at Fang Yuan directly, he showed a determined expression that was not backing off, I am truly ashamed, actually, I am a very greedy person, not only do I want to attend the wedding of superior immortal and Lu Er, I also want to see the children that you have after getting married. After all, those are my descendants as well. Fang Yuan began to prance around, his eyebrows were tightly pursed, he said directly, lifespan Gu are hard to find, they are very precious, I am unable to give them away. This treasure from heaven is truly hard to obtain. Old immortal Chen Qi nodded, as if he had expected Fang Yuan's reply already, he continued, but there is no need to worry. I'll let you know, this He Fan Grotto Heaven also produces lifespan Gu, they are all gathered and collected. The heavenly spirit might be mindless, but old ancestor He Fan had his arrangements. If I am not wrong, there are definitely lifespan Gu within He Fan's true inheritance. Sigh, I only need 300 years worth of lifespan Gu. 300 years. Fang Yuan stared at Xianxia angrily. Xianxia was still smiling comfortably. Fang Yuan turned furious. 300 is too much, I don't even have a single one. I will only give 100. 150. Xianxia bargained, he finally put down his act. Fang Yuan walked for a few more rounds, gritting his teeth. Forget it, I will give you 150. Deal. Xianxia clapped, smiling widely and happily, he stopped caring about his face. After all, this was more than 100 years of lifespan, how could a bit of face compare to it? Xianxia looked at Fang Yuan, smiling even more deeply now. Superior immortal, I heard from Lo Air that you have a lot of immortal goo, I wonder if you can let me have a look to broaden my horizons. Fang Yuan was stunned before flying into a rage, he gritted his teeth at Xianxia. This old fellow was too greedy, he said he wanted to take a look, but the truth was, he wanted Fang Yuan to use an immortal goo to exchange for his support. Xianxia saw Fang Yuan turning furious and his heart jumped, but soon, he thought that this was a rare chance, there would be no opportunities like this again. After they returned to the main tribe, would this occur again? Thus, he quickly said, Superior Immortal, this is my final request, as long as I get it, the four of us will definitely support you. Fang Yuan began prancing again. He took heavy steps, as if the concrete floor had an unresolvable deep enmity with him. Xianxia observed his expression, seeing that Fang Yuan's anger was fading, he was actually thinking about it, he let down his guard. He felt great joy inside him, success. As expected, after a moment, Fang Yuan stopped his movements, he stood in front of the bed with an immortal goo in his hand. Rank 7 Immortal Goo. Xianxia shouted, feeling surprised and joyful. This is a sword path immortal goo, it is not compatible with me, otherwise, you would never see this. Fang Yuan said angrily. What is this goo's name? Xianxia's eyes were shining, he watched as Fang Yuan handed the goo over to him. Wait, I'll exchange with this one instead. Fang Yuan suddenly changed his mind, he retracted his arm as he took out another goo from his immortal aperture. Xianxia's gaze subconsciously moved to Fang Yuan's other arm. No sooner said than done. The Sword Path Immortal Goo activated. Sword Path Killer Move, Dark Assassination. Xianxia was staring blankly, the bloody mark left on his forehead enlarged as blood started to spew out from the front and back of his head. He was dead. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1124, Dark Assassination. Chapter 1124, Dark Assassination. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. With Xianxia's death, all the palaces started shaking. The group of palaces were all mortal goo houses, they were under old immortal Xianxia's control. But Fang Yuan came prepared, at his will, he activated arrangements that were prepared long ago. At once, the tremors of the palaces settled down and did not continue. This was one of Fang Yuan's preparations these last days. Mortal goo houses were nothing special to goo immortals. Unless it was regarding an immortal goo house, but how could these goo immortals inside He Fan Grotto Heaven have that? He Fan was ruthless, before he died, he killed all of the criminal He tribe goo immortals. The inheritances left behind were naturally lacking some crucial information, there was no way they contained information about immortal goo houses. And with just these goo immortals inside He Fan Grotto Heaven, there was little hope of them creating an immortal goo house. Furthermore, even though the palaces were huge and grand, the methods used were too old. Fang Yuan could easily unravel them. Old immortal Xianxia letting him stay here for such a long time was a huge mistake. These goo immortals in He Fan Grotto Heaven have lived in peace for too long, without great struggle and competition to spur on progress, they have basically no alertness. Fang Yuan looked at old immortal Xianxia's corpse, snickering in disdain. Xianxia died with his eyes wide open, he was still in shock, Fang Yuan had attacked too quickly, he could not even react to show fear. Fang Yuan confirmed that Xianxia was dead, before keeping him inside the sovereign immortal aperture. Next, he used familiar face, turning into old immortal Xianxia's appearance and leaving the room, walking out openly. Greetings to old ancestor. Greetings to old ancestor. Along the way, Fang Yuan met many Gu masters and mortals of all genders and age. After seeing Fang Yuan, they knelt down, expressing their most respectful greetings. Every time, Fang Yuan activated his Gu worms, using a formless force to help them stand up, he asked them some questions in encouragement. These descendants of Chen Qi were extremely grateful to him. They did not know that the real Chen Qi had already been killed by Fang Yuan. They were greeting the culprit. They did not suspect a thing, because this was how old immortal Chen Qi usually acted. Fang Yuan had been toying with Chen Lu these last days. He obtained a lot of intel, among which were Chen Qi's habits. Otherwise, with just familiar face, he could only disguise his appearance. He could not alter his actions to fit those of old immortal Chen Qi as well. Fang Yuan walked openly and confidently. After a while, he arrived at a palace. Ancestor, why are you here? Chen Liji heard a disturbance and walked out of the palace, greeting him. He looked at Fang Yuan with much puzzlement. He was not suspecting his identity, of course. Instead, he was thinking, Ancestor was clearly using the excuse of being bedridden currently to delay the meeting with He Cheng. Why did he appear in public so openly today, going against the original plan? Little Ji, that He Cheng came to me secretly earlier. We have already finished negotiating. Let's go in, I have a matter to discuss with you. Fang Yuan said slowly. He patted Chen Liji's back. He walked ahead with his arms behind his back. The entire group of palaces were mortal Gu houses. But these three Gu immortals' accommodations respectively belonged to them. On this point, old immortal Chen Qi could not interfere. He could not control the lives of his descendants to this extent, right? Chen Liji heard Fang Yuan's words and his thoughts shifted. His suspicions were lifted. He quickly moved forward, leading the way. Ancestor, please take a seat. He bowed, directing Fang Yuan to his seat. Please have some tea. Soon, he prepared a high-quality tea and handed it over with both hands, having a respectful attitude. After handing over the tea, Chen Liji went down to sit at a lower seat. After drinking the tea, Fang Yuan saw that Chen Liji was seated far from himself. He said, "Oh, little Ji, bring your chair over, sit beside me." Chen Liji was shocked and pleased. He joyfully answered, "Yes, ancestor. I will stand beside you and listen to your guidance." How could he stand? There was a difference between sitting and standing. When standing, one's muscles were contracted, they could move rapidly. When seated, the body relaxed, even their mental state would be affected, they would let down their guard. Fang Yuan wanted to kill Chen Liji. He had to make ample preparations. Thus, Fang Yuan pretended to be unhappy. "I asked you to move your chair, why are you being so reluctant? I have already talked to He Cheng. Now, we need to deal with Jing Tuo's gang. I need to entrust many matters to you. Yun Er and Lu Er are both women. At the crucial moment, little Ji, you have to handle more responsibilities." Chen Liji had countless thoughts in his mind. He had a feeling of joy after receiving recognition. Yes. He quickly moved his chair, sitting beside Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan saw that the doors were open. He said, "Close the doors, these words are better kept as a secret from outsiders." Chen Liji had no doubts. He followed the instructions. He Cheng could not endure it anymore. He came to me. After negotiating with He Cheng for a long time, he promised us many benefits. He is very sincere. Fang Yuan said slowly. Chen Liji listened attentively. He wanted to ask what price He Cheng paid, but because his ancestor did not mention it, he did not dare to ask. Right now, Fang Yuan started to satisfy his curiosity. He exaggerated the amount somewhat, causing Chen Liji to listen with joy and excitement. He Cheng actually offered a rank 7 immortal Gu. At the end, Chen Liji gasped. He was truly overjoyed. "Will I lie to you? Take a look." Fang Yuan chuckled, taking out flying sword immortal Gu. "Good Gu, this is a good Gu." Chen Liji quickly praised. "Oh little Ji." Fang Yuan said slowly. Chen Liji immediately raised his head. His ancestor was talking to him. How could he be distracted? At this instance, sword light flashed. Chen Liji was startled. There seemed to be a flash of light just then. Next, he looked at Fang Yuan's hand subconsciously. The flying sword immortal Gu there was gone. Why did the Gu vanish? Chen Li Ji was perplexed, but suddenly, he felt his body going weak. There was a warm liquid flowing down his forehead. Suddenly, his world started spinning. He fell onto the ground, kneeling. One of his hands was on the floor supporting himself, while he attempted to grab Fang Yuan's robe with the other, but he did not succeed. Plop! He fell onto the ground, completely dead. Fang Yuan's warm smile vanished, his expression turned icy cold. Doing the same thing as before, Fang Yuan suppressed this palace as well, preventing it from shaking. Others could not see any problems. Next, he gathered Chen Li Ji's corpse and kept it in his immortal aperture. He opened the palace doors and left. There were 2 female Gu immortals remaining. Chen Wanyun had greater threat. Fang Yuan's next target was her. Sister, I finally succeeded in my new move, concealment within. Chen Lu smiled and said to Chen Wanyun. Is that so? Chen Wanyun heard this and was overjoyed. She looked at Chen Lu with an expression of satisfaction. It seems that our Lu heir is finally working hard. Let me guess, who is the person who motivated you to cultivate this hard? Chen Wanyun pretended to think. She continued, I think this person has the surname He, and there is only one other word in his full name. Before she finished, Chen Lu interrupted, Sister, stop teasing me. I was very hardworking to begin with, okay? Is that so? Chen Wanyun smiled as she saw Chen Li's shy appearance. She thought, Lu heir might be innocent and grew up under our protection, but she knows how impressive He Cheng is, thus she is trying to improve herself. I was going to remind her, but it seems that I was worried for nothing. Chen Lu could not deal with this glance. She took a step back, vanishing from Chen Wanyun's sight. Sister, I used concealment within, can you find me? Hehe, do you know where I am? In an instant, Chen Wanyun could hear Chen Li's voice near her. Cheeky girl, after I find you, I will deal with you. Chen Wanyun showed an evil appearance. She was about to use her investigative killer move, when suddenly, she felt some disturbance outside. She was curious, why is Ancestor here? Lu heir, stop playing, go with me to greet him. Chen Lu was about to dispel her immortal killer move, but suddenly, she had an idea. She remembered the time when old immortal Qin Chi made fun of her. She pouted, forget it, I will listen secretly by the side. Let's see if Ancestor can find me. If he cannot find me, and I appear suddenly, he would be in shock. He. Oh you are too mischievous, you will not be able to get married. Chen Wanyun shook her head, walking out of the palace to greet old immortal Qin Chi. Fang Yuan had familiar face. Chen Wanyun and Chen Lu could not find out his true identity. But Fang Yuan did not have an outstanding investigative killer move. He could not find Chen Lu, who was concealed. In fact, even if he had a killer move like that, he could not use it openly. Once he used it, his immortal aura would leak. It would invite suspicion. Only immortal methods like dark assassination could completely conceal the aura of immortal Gu. Without leaking a trace, one could sneak attack and catch an enemy unprepared. Chen Wanyun brought Fang Yuan to his seat. She wanted to call Chen Lu to come out. How could she peek at them with such disrespect? But thinking about it, old Ancestor dotes on Lu heir. He gained a lot of benefits just now after negotiating with young Master He Cheng. He is in a good mood. Even if Ancestor discovers Lu heir in hiding, he would surely not blame her. Thinking of that, Chen Wanyun pretended to be unaware, passing the tea to him. Fang Yuan drank a mouthful. He did the same thing again, asking Chen Wanyun to sit closer to him. Chen Lu watched as she held in her laughter. She felt extremely excited. Next, as she listened to Fang Yuan and Chen Wanyun's words, she gradually focused, and upon hearing their gains, she was very happy, but she started worrying for Fang Yuan. Young Master He Cheng paid such a huge price, will this affect him negatively? Soon after, Fang Yuan took out Flying Sword Immortal Gu. This rank 7 Sword Path Immortal Gu was given to me by He Cheng, adding on to his previous offer. Yun heir, I want you to go to the cave where the 3 immortals live, using this as a chip to convince the 3 immortals to support He Cheng. Are you willing to do it? Chen Wanyun quickly got up. Ancestor, I will follow your instructions. Good, good, good. Fang Yuan chuckled. Chen Li's gaze was focused on Flying Sword Immortal Gu as well. This was the first time she was seeing a rank 7 Immortal Gu. She could not hold in her curiosity, she wanted to jump out and give a surprise to her ancestor. But at the next moment, a change occurred. Dark Assassination activated again. How could Chen Wangyun anticipate that her beloved ancestor, someone with such closeness to her, would attack? Without any defense, this gentle female immortal followed in the footsteps of Chen Qi and Chen Liji. Chen Wangyun was killed. Fang Yuan retrieved Flying Sword, he sent the corpse into his immortal aperture, he got rid of the blood stains and left. Chenlo was still concealed, she was covering her mouth with her hands, her eyes were wide open and staring, but her pupils had shrunk to pin size. Her nostrils were expanded, she was breathing in deeply. Her delicate body was shivering, tears were flowing down her beautiful tender cheeks silently. Unbelievable. Extreme terror. How can this be? How can this happen? What did I just see? What just happened? Is this an illusion? Definitely, this is all an illusion. How can this be? He, ha ha ha, ancestor killed Sister Yaner. How can that be? But the truth was in front of her very eyes. Hearsay could be wrong, but seeing was believing. Cold, cruel, she could not doubt what she saw at all. Plop. She knelt on the ground, collapsing weakly. Her shoulders moved up and down, she was sobbing. On her lively face, there was fear, terror, confusion, and helplessness. Her hands were still covering her mouth, she was desperately covering it, as if this could protect her. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1125, More Killing. Chapter 1125, More Killing. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Why did her ancestor kill Chen Wangyun? Chenlo could not understand, she could not imagine why. She sobbed, her body shuddered, she suddenly thought of Chen Liji. Did ancestor also go to find and kill him? This was a simple inference. No matter what, she had to find Chen Liji and tell him about this. At the crucial moment, Chenlo did not think of He Cheng, she thought of the Gu immortals who were her most closely related family members. Chenlo realized what she had to do, she stopped crying, standing up and activating her immortal killer move, concealing her appearance and running towards Chen Liji's palace. But Fang Yuan did not go to Chen Liji's palace as Chenlo was thinking. He did not discover Chenlo, and he had already killed Chen Liji, thus, his final course of action was to go to Chenlo. To find her and kill her. A moment later, Chenlo arrived at Chen Liji's place. Why is there no one here? Chenlo searched the palace, but did not find Chen Liji. Of course, she saw many mortals and Gu masters. But Chenlo did not alert them, even if she told them this shocking news, they might not believe her. In the empty hall, fear and helplessness emerged again in Chen Li's heart. Ancestor Chen Qi had killed Chen Wangyun, Chen Liji was missing as well, he was likely to have met with disaster. Chenlo could not help but cry again. What should I do? Oh no. Young Master He Cheng. Chenlo finally thought of Fang Yuan at this time, she jolted back to focus. She felt that at this moment, the most reliable person was He Cheng. She turned around, towards He Cheng's accommodation. Almost at the same time, Fang Yuan arrived at Chen Li's palace. Nobody was here. Strange, where would she go at this time? Fang Yuan's heart sank. The situation was changing beyond his expectations. Fang Yuan raised his head and looked up at the sky of He Fan Grotto heaven, it was cloudless and azure in color. Fang Yuan smiled at the sky, before going towards his own accommodation. Where could Chenlo go? There were only a few places. Gu immortals and mortals did not have many common topics of interest. Returning to his accommodations, Fang Yuan turned into He Cheng, waiting for Chen Lu to come. At this time, a bright light was shot into the sky, it went up and spread out in all directions, it was bright and piercing to the eyes. Is this the thing Chen Lu mentioned before, that warning of bright light, to ask the immortals to work together in defense? Fang Yuan frowned instantly. These days, he had been getting intel from Chen Lu. Among which, one of them was about the time when Gu immortals first appeared in He Fan Grotto Heaven, they struggled against desolate beasts and ancient desolate beasts. The first few generations of Gu immortals joined forces to resist them. Normally, they would be in different parts of the Grotto Heaven, but when one side was attacked, they would send out a signal during critical times, inviting Gu immortals from other areas to help out, and paying them afterwards. As the number of Gu immortals increased in He Fan Grotto Heaven, they got stronger, and this warning of bright light has not been used for 100 years. This time, it must have been sent out by Chen Lu. I underestimated this girl, she dealt with the situation well. Fang Yuan smiled. With his craftiness, he already deduced many things. He had already killed 3 people, only Chen Lu was left. And the warning method could only be used by Gu immortals, it was clear that Chen Lu had activated it. Why did Chen Lu activate this without meeting him? Evidently, she had found out that one of the others had met with disaster. No matter where she is hiding or what method she used, since she did not come to find him, that meant she was suspicious of him. Then, the immortals were going to gather together now, how would Fang Yuan deal with them? Actually, a moment ago, Chen Lu was about to find He Cheng, when she suddenly had a thought, even if she found young Master He Cheng, what if he could not defeat her ancestor? Chen Lu did not know about He Cheng's strength, but in her mind, she felt that old immortal Chen Qi had deep and immeasurable power. This was the result of old immortal Chen Qi's authority that had been ingrained in her. I have to think of a perfect method. Chen Lu thus thought of the warning of bright light. The alert of bright light soared into the sky, Chen Li's mind slowly calmed down. Will ancestor come to find me after seeing this light? Thinking of this, Chen Lu started feeling scared again. She gritted her teeth, she decided to go find Fang Yuan. From start to finish, she did not suspect that Fang Yuan was the culprit. When bright light soared to the sky, Gu immortals in all the other areas reacted. What happened? At this timing, old man Chen Qi actually sent a warning signal and asked us to go help him. In front of their cave, Feng Jun frowned upon seeing the light in the sky. Zhou Min also had a look of suspicion, this matter is quite peculiar. Old immortal Chen Qi has a total of 4 immortals, they are the strongest force among us. Inside He Fan Grotto Heaven, what kind of ancient desolate beast can make Chen Qi ask us for help? You think this matter has to do with He Cheng? Zheng Tua pondered. Most likely. Feng Jun nodded, this warning of bright light has not been used for 100 years, it is strange that it is activated at this time. He Cheng has already stayed at old man Chen Qi's place for some days. They might have come to an agreement now, and are working together. Old immortal Chen Qi will definitely provide support if He Cheng is willing to give him enough benefits, it is not surprising. Zheng Tua thought over it, no matter whether there really is an ancient desolate beast attack, or if Chen Qi is trying to scheme against us, we need to go and investigate the situation. That's right, we have practiced blood-light spirit suppression and are at the crucial moment. In a few days, we will be able to suppress the heavenly spirit and take the true inheritance forcefully. We need to stall for time now, but we need to be careful of what the other side is planning. We will give in to them for now, in a few days, He Fan Grotto Heaven will belong to us. Feng Jun snickered. Immediately the 3 immortals moved out, towards old immortal Chen Qi's palace. At the same time, the 2 lone Gu immortals also went there. He Fan Grotto Heaven was not small, but the Gu immortals lived quite close to each other. And because the 3 immortals used immortal killer moves, disregarding the immortal essence to travel. In a moment, they were already halfway there. At this time, a flying figure appeared in front of the 3 immortals. It's Chen Lu. Zhou Min was the first to recognize the person. Chen Lu was bathed in blood, she had a shocked expression, she seemed to be escaping for her life. The three immortals looked at each other. Was there really an ancient desolate beast attack? Qianlu, slow down, we are here, what happened over there? Xianxia called out. Qianlu saw these three immortals and was overjoyed with surprise. Seniors. It is great to see you. That He Cheng is heinous. After failing to negotiate with our ancestor, he used a sneak attack and killed Sister Wan Yun. I was the one who sent the warning, I escaped, but He Cheng is still chasing me. Thankfully, I had my immortal killer moves concealment, I managed to survive. What? The three immortals heard this and were deeply shocked. He Cheng is so daring. He dared to attack old immortal Chen Qi, he is so vicious and ruthless, he is likely going to attack us as well. Strange, he has to get He Fan's true inheritance, without our support, how can he get it? A life for a life is perfectly justified. We will have to take down He Cheng. To play safe, we need to gather with the other Gu immortals. Qianlu, don't worry, we are family, we will definitely uphold justice for you. Justice? Qianlu smiled suddenly, attacking. Under the three immortals' shocked gazes, sword light flashed and stabbed into Xianxua's body. Xianxia was caught unawares, even though he had a mortal killer move defending him. Dark Assassination was an immortal killer move, with rank 7 immortal Gu flying sword as the core, it could not be stopped, it cut him into half on the spot. Instantly, Xianxia died. Brother! Zhou Min shouted. Feng Jun was furious, he clapped his hands, intense winds assaulted Feng Yuan. Oh brother! Zhou Min cried out, watching the two halves of Xianxua's corpse fall to the ground, his organs and blood scattered in the air. Feng Jun carried Zhou Min, dragging her as they retreated. Qianlu, are you crazy? You dared to kill my brother Xianxia, I will fight it out with you. Zhou Min growled, her beautiful face was flushed red, I will kill you. Kill me? Qianlu stopped her movement, she scoffed as she looked at Zhou Min in disdain, you? Zhou Min was furious, she struggled intensely, getting free from Feng Jun's arms. Brother, what are you doing? Let go of me, this lowly bitch killed our big brother. She killed him. I will pull out her skull and use it as an offering for our brother. Calm down, sister. Don't fall for his provocations. How can this be Qianlu? Don't you know Qianlu? Earlier, that was a sword path immortal killer move. This is not Qianlu. Feng Jun shouted, looking at Qianlu, his eyes were bursting with fire, filled with hatred. It seems that someone here has some brains. Qianlu smiled, her appearance changed suddenly, becoming that of He Cheng. You are indeed He Cheng. Feng Jun's body shook. Scoundrel! Zhou Min scolded. From their expressions, it seems that they were not aware that I was the killer. Strange. Qianlu did not use any information path Gu worms to tell them. Feng Yuan was confused. He did not know that from start to finish, Qianlu did not suspect him. After creating the warning, Qianlu ran off to his accommodations. Feng Yuan returned to his room long ago, but after seeing the warning of bright light while waiting for Qianlu, he thought he was exposed. Thus, he adapted to the circumstances and went out to weaken the remaining immortals' battle strength in He Fan Grotto Heaven. Since Chen Qi's side had 3 immortals dead already, the next largest group were the 3 immortals who were sworn siblings. Thus, Feng Yuan turned into Chen Li's appearance, flying towards their cave. In the end, he met the 3 immortals and used dark assassination to kill the most threatening of them, the blood path Gu immortal Xianxia. Meanwhile, Qianlu went to Feng Yuan's room, she could not find him, she felt disappointment and immense worry. She did not know that out of sheer coincidence, she had narrowly escaped death. I did not put any hope in this disguised assassination attempt, but the process was unexpectedly smooth. The Gu immortals inside this He Fan Grotto Heaven are truly incomparable to Northern Plains Gu immortals. After such a long period of peace, they have low vigilance. Anyway, I should kill these 2 first. Thoughts churned in his mind like fireworks. Feng Yuan thought of many things, but only a moment had passed in the outside world. His lips curled up, he charged towards Feng Jun and Zhou Min. To kill. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1126, Verge of Death. Chapter 1126, Verge of Death. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. He actually charged over. Feng Jun's pupils shrunk, he was stunned by Feng Yuan's courage. Feng Yuan charged forward relentlessly, even though he was alone, his stance was overwhelming, it was as if he was clad in wind and lightning. Killing intent surged, it was like a terrifying claw, slashing towards the veil of life and death. The Gu immortals in He Fan Grotto Heaven would often spar with each other, but when would they ever be in a life and death situation against each other? Retreat. At once, Feng Jun only had one word in his mind. In contrast, Zhou Min was spewing with anger, she said excitedly, "Good. Scoundrel, get ready to die." She was already beyond furious, she wanted to take revenge for her brother, she wanted to tear this scoundrel, Feng Yuan, into pieces, to pull out his tendons and snap his bones. Feng Jun dragged along Zhou Min as they escaped, but Zhou Min had already activated her immortal killer move. Her eyes were wide open as they stared, golden white light shot out of her eyes. The light was extremely sharp, as if it was made of blades and daggers. Zhou Min was a light path Gu immortal, she was nurtured by a Gu immortal from a past generation, she had sight light immortal Gu. And she was currently activating her strongest move, Farsight Weapon Light. It is this move. Feng Yuan saw Zhou Min's actions and came to a realization, his charging speed increased instead. In his mind, he recalled a scene from a few days ago. "Young Master He Cheng, why are you sighing?" Chenlo asked, "Do you not like this scenery?" "Thanks for your concern, Miss Luer. The scenery is beautiful, I am truly impressed. But I have the mission of inheriting He Fan's true inheritance, I am very worried. As I recall, Zheng Tuo and the others are not easy to talk to." Feng Yuan acted like he was troubled. Chenlo frowned too, indeed, Ancestor had said this before, those three Gu immortals have their own ambitions, they are different from us. Birds of a feather flock together, those three are ambitious people. Even if I obtain your support, I will still be short of obtaining the true inheritance. Do you think these three would find trouble with me on the pretext of sparring? Will they obstruct us? Feng Yuan asked. Chenlo smiled, no need to worry, actually, if you know about them, those three immortals are not scary. For example, Gu immortal Zhou Min has a killer move called Farsight Weapon Light, it is very powerful. Once she uses it, her eyes will shoot out golden white light, it can cut down anything. But this move is quite peculiar, the farther the distance, the stronger it is. If you are very close to Zhou Min, then this move is drastically weakened. If you are right in front of her, even a mortal killer move can block Farsight Weapon Light. A warm smile appeared on Feng Yuan's face, "Oh. There is such an interesting move, I am truly enlightened. Luer, what other interesting stories are there?" Chenlo looked at Feng Yuan, seeing his handsome face looking right at her, emitting lots of affection, it was so intense as if the summer winds were drowning her in bliss. Chenlo had a flushed expression, she quickly turned around, not daring to look at Feng Yuan directly. Her face was completely red, she looked afar as she stammered, young master, if you want to know, I will tell you. Inside He Fan Grotto Heaven, some of these Gu immortals' inheritances came from old ancestor He Fan, like the Blood Path one for example, it was a result of He Fan's research. And some came from the criminal immortals, like Zhou Min's Light Path inheritance, and old immortal Qin Chi's Rule Path inheritance. These proper Gu immortal inheritances were all very comprehensive. The details of large numbers of mortal Gu, a few immortal Gu, and all sorts of immortal Gu recipes and mortal Gu recipes, cultivation experiences and information about the outside world. Some of these contents were sensitive, like Treasure Yellow Heaven, they were all erased by He Fan. However, some information regarding the other inheritances was retained. The He tribe Gu immortals were quite close together. For example, outsiders might not about Farsight Weapon Light, but how could they themselves not know? Thus, this kind of information was all left inside their inheritances. As time passed, mortals went up Immortal Succession Mountain and inherited them. Gu immortals appeared and passed away. During this process, there were all sorts of reasons, like fighting over benefits or personal conflicts. They fought against each other. The Gu immortals' methods were passed down over generations. Everybody knew about their moves. These were no secrets. Fang Yuan's preparation was not only regarding the assassination plan, he also collected a lot of other information. Farsight Weapon Light. This was quite a troublesome immortal killer move. Under normal circumstances, when seeing an unknown attacking method, Gu immortals would choose to retreat and observe cautiously. Nobody would charge in without knowing the situation and place themselves in trouble. According to Fang Yuan's vigilant nature, there was a high likelihood of him doing so, unless the difference in their strengths was very big. And that was exactly what Zhou Min wanted. By the time Fang Yuan realized the effect of Farsight Weapon Light, he might have already spent a lot of time, effort, immortal essence, or even gotten injured in the process. When Gu immortals battle, information often led to having an advantage. Thus, under normal circumstances in the Gu immortal world, they would keep their immortal Gu secret. Immortal killer moves were rarely used publicly. They would practice their moves in private. The Gu immortals' immortal aperture was also rarely shown to others. Because the environment inside revealed the secrets of the Gu immortals' Dao marks. The resources inside were often food for immortal Gu. All these could be used to deduce what immortal Gu the Gu immortal had. Fang Yuan withstood the Farsight Weapon Light. He charged forward with unparalleled vigor. Of course, he was not rash. His robe was previously stained with blood. These blood stains were not eye-catching, but they were formed from an immortal killer move. Blood Path Immortal Killer Move, Blood-Stained Conqueror's Robe. During the period before the opening of Treasure Yellow Heaven, Fang Yuan was unable to develop his immortal aperture, because Xianxia sect was suppressing him. He had a tough time. But he did not waste his time. He deduced this immortal killer move to make up for his weakness. Fang Yuan had many weaknesses. But he considered it deeply. His greatest weakness was in defense. During the second earthly calamity, this flaw was evident. If he did not have Dang Hun Mountain as a base for defense, Fang Yuan would have likely died. Compared to investigative and information path methods, Fang Yuan would rather play safe and settle his weakness in defense first. Due to his Wisdom Path and Blood Path Grandmaster attainment levels, as well as the immense Blood Path foundation built during his previous life, Fang Yuan did not have much difficulty in creating Bloodstained Conqueror's Robe. At this moment, with Blood Asset Immortal Gu as the core, Bloodstained Conqueror's Robe was showcasing its capability in battle. The effect was superb. Fang Yuan charged towards the Farsight Weapon Light. His body did not waver, he had no injuries at all. His immortal essence expenditure was also reducing. Like what Chen Lu had said, the closer I get, the lower Farsight Weapon Light's power becomes. Thus, even Bloodstained Conqueror's Robe's immortal essence expenditure is falling. Fang Yuan made such a decisive and wise choice. In the blink of an eye, he was already very close to Zhou Min. They were less than 100 steps away. Die die die. Zhou Min cried out continuously. The sharp light in her eyes continued to shoot out brightly. She was overcome with anger. She was not a threat. Feng Jun, who was calmer, felt huge fear as his hair stood on end. Fang Yuan's advancement made him feel an immense sense of danger. The great shock made him use his most familiar defensive method subconsciously. Immortal Killer Move, Luck Whirlwind. Huge winds blew. Fang Yuan was pushed away by a mystical force. Chen Li's words reverberated in Fang Yuan's mind, speaking of which, Gu Immortal Feng Jun is also quite strong. He is the only person who ascended Immortal Succession Mountain and successfully became a Gu Immortal. Such immortals are more formidable than us, who were nurtured by our seniors. Furthermore, Feng Jun cultivates the famous Luck Path. Luck Path. A Gu Immortal path with few members. Luck Path was created by Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. Even though it was famous, actual Luck Path Gu Immortals were few in number. As the origin of Luck Path, Giant Sun Immortal Venerable left behind 3 true inheritances: Self-Luck, All Living Beings Luck, and Heaven and Earth Luck. Self-luck was in Langya blessed land, it was given to long-hair ancestor as payment, among which, dog shit luck ended up in Fong Yuan's hands. All living beings' luck was placed in 88 True Yang building by Giant Sun Immortal Venerable. A portion of it was given to the winner of the Imperial Court contest. Fong Yuan had once possessed Connect Luck Immortal Gu, it was part of all living beings' luck. Feng Jun's true inheritance had also originated from 88 True Yang building. Back then, the He tribe Gu master entered 88 True Yang building and fortunately obtained a portion of the true inheritance, he received Chi Luck Immortal Gu. Thereafter, he cultivated to Gu immortal level and passed it down for generations. The last generation had been punished after He Feng Yu's disappearance and the loss of Attitude Gu, thus this true inheritance was left in Immortal Succession Mountain. Feng Jun obtained this true inheritance, he had Chi Luck Immortal Gu, the move he was most familiar with and had practiced the most was Luck Whirlwind. This move was very special. When the target attacks, by using it, it could repel the target. When the target retreats, if it is used, it could drag the target back to the user. Once this move was used, intense winds would form, but that was only on the surface, the key was that formless force. Fong Yuan could not see this formless force, he was hit by the move again and was sent away. At once, their distance enlarged. As if his hard work had been in vain. But Fong Yuan smiled as his lips curled up, he thought to himself, Luck Whirlwind, the second time already. According to what Chen Lu said, this move could not be used extensively, in one day, it could only be used 100 times. Just take it as 100, this might seem like a lot, but it was not. Activating Luck Whirlwind was not as simple as it seemed on the surface. The first issue was Immortal Essence, Feng Jun was a rank 6 Gu Immortal, he did not have a deep foundation, using this killer move would expend Immortal Essence, how long could Feng Jun last? And immortal killer moves could not succeed with every use, each time Feng Jun failed, he would not only suffer a backlash, he would be unable to repel Fong Yuan, he would be able to get close and kill them. Thus, it might seem like Fong Yuan could do nothing to Zhou Min and Feng Jun, but he actually had complete advantage in this situation. Feng Jun and Zhou Min were walking on the side of a steep cliff, if they were careless, they would die without intact corpses. Die, go and die. Zhou Min was still furious, she stared at Fong Yuan as her eyes shot out white light. Retreat, we must retreat. The calmer Feng Jun felt his mouth going dry, his heart was pounding as his body was covered in cold sweat. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1127, Resolving the Situation by Killing. Chapter 1127, Resolving the Situation by Killing. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. The two sides did not fight for very long, but Feng Jun already had the intention to retreat and escape. Fong Yuan first assassinated the strongest rank 7 blood path Gu Immortal Xianxia, before charging forward and using the best tactic to gain the absolute advantage. Feng Jun was not an idiot, even if he lacked battle experience, he knew that he was in great danger. He wanted to retreat, it was a wise choice. In Gu Immortal battles, they fought not only with strength but also with wits. Sister has lost it due to her emotions, He Cheng is a rank 7 Gu Immortal, even if we cooperate, we cannot defeat him. We should join up with the other Gu Immortals, and with old Immortal Chen Qi at the lead, encircle and kill him. Feng Jun thought of this and started to retreat. He used his immortal killer move, his body moved like a cloud, bringing him and Zhou Min away towards the left. What are you doing? Brother, let me kill him, let me kill him. Zhou Min screamed as she struggled in Feng Jun's arms. Feng Jun smiled bitterly, he increased the strength he was using on Zhou Min, he pacified her, don't move, I am getting some distance to create a chance for your farsight weapon light. Zhou Min heard this and shuddered, she said excitedly, good idea. She concentrated, staring fixedly at Fong Yuan. With greater distance, farsight weapon light became stronger, Fong Yuan's defense would be under greater pressure. Fong Yuan looked at the cloud below their feet, he smiled without concern. He did not chase them, he charged down and landed on the ground. He picked up Xianxia's corpse, which was split into two, putting both pieces into his immortal aperture. Evil thief! Let go of our brother's corpse! Zhou Min shouted, her lungs were exploding from anger. Fang Yuan's actions were truly vile. Not only did he kill Xianxia, he did not even let his corpse off. How could he let it off? The Dao marks of this rank 7 blood path Gu immortal were an immense boost to Fang Yuan's foundation. Looking at it, including Xianxia, Fang Yuan had already killed 4 Gu immortals. It was hard to annex the immortal aperture as it had strict conditions, but the gain in Dao marks was immense. Ordinary Gu immortals would only absorb the Dao marks of an enemy of the same path due to the conflict between Dao marks. Otherwise, they would get more trouble instead. However, my sovereign immortal body is different, the Dao marks do not conflict. This is amazing. I can absorb the Dao marks of any enemy I kill and increase my foundation. This seems to be the best way to increase my strength. At this moment, Fang Yuan had a new insight. This sovereign immortal body was created from sovereign immortal fetus Gu. Spectral soul wanted to revive using it. If he really succeeded in reviving, the consequences were unthinkable. Firstly, spectral soul had devoured so many souls in the door of life and death, he had countless cultivation experiences. Secondly, all of his paths were great grandmaster and above. Finally, he had the help of shadow sex remnant forces. With this starting point, he could repeat what he did in his era, killing everyone and everything. He could annex the immortal apertures of Gu immortals he killed or absorb the Dao marks they had. His growth would be at an incredible speed, it would surpass one's imagination. Unlike Fang Yuan, who only had Grandmaster attainment level in 4 paths, it was hard for him to annex immortal apertures, he could only absorb Dao marks in most cases. Fang Yuan placed Xianxia's corpse in his immortal aperture. Zhou Min looked at with this anger and hatred. Feng Jun did not speak, he felt aggrieved, but also let out a sigh of relief. It seems that He Qing does not have movement methods, or maybe he uses the upper extreme heavenly eagle normally. This immemorial desolate beast has yet to grow fully, it only has rank 6 battle strength, he did not let it out because he is afraid of Farsight weapon light killing it. Feng Jun became less worried. But at the next moment, his mouth opened wide, a shocked expression appeared on his face. It turned out that Fang Yuan had activated sword escape, his body flew into the sky like a sword. His speed was so fast, Feng Jun and Zhou Min were completely stunned from shock. How can he be this fast? Zhou Min said. So this is his real speed. Feng Jun's heart was about to jump out, his movement method was simply outmatched. In a few breaths of time, Fang Yuan got close to them again. His icy killing intent almost froze Feng Jun's heart. Immortal killer move, Luck Whirlwind. At the moment of crisis, he had to use his trump card again. Like what happened earlier, Fang Yuan was sent away again. The third time, Fang Yuan noted, he had been repelled 3 times, but he felt no dejection. Zhou Min finally became sober-minded. She was completely shocked by Fang Yuan's speed, her forehead was full of sweat, her anger dwindled, and fear took over. Quickly leave. This person is too strong, let's gather with the rest first. Zhou Min yelled. Feng Jun heard this and felt glad at her change of mindset. With Zhou Min's help, the two rose in speed, they rapidly escaped for their lives. Fang Yuan chased after them, shooting out with bursts of speed at times. But every time, Feng Jun's luck whirlwind would ruin his attempt. After chasing them for some time, 2 Gu immortals appeared before them. They were the 2 Gu immortal lone cultivators, they usually lived together, one was called Xianxia, the other was Gao Mi. Hold on, we're coming. The 2 immortals were flying too, they quickly joined up with Zhou Min and Feng Jun. Fang Yuan observed their expressions, seeing that they were showing no shock, he knew that Feng Jun and Zhou Min had used a certain information path method to inform these 2 Gu immortals along the way. He Qing, you are simply too bold, you dare to cause harm to us inside He Fan Grotto Heaven. Today, you will undoubtedly die. Feng Jun and Zhou Min stopped escaping, they went ahead to fight Fang Yuan. Young Master He Cheng, you killed Sister Wan Yun. Did you kill old ancestor as well? A shrill voice suddenly resounded. It was Chen Lu. After using the warning, Chen Lu went to find Fang Yuan, but at that time, Fang Yuan had already left to find the three immortals including Zheng Tuo. Chen Lu could not find Fang Yuan, she was completely lost and helpless, she did not know what to do. She did not dare to dispel her immortal killer move, she hid inside the palace for a while, before she received Feng Jun's letter. The letter stated that Fang Yuan disguised as Chen Lu and used an immortal killer move to kill Gu immortal Zheng Tuo. No matter how stupid Chen Lu was, she realized instantly what the situation was. She quickly went to Chen Qi's place, but where could she find that old ancestor of hers? Even though Feng Jun was escaping, he had already contacted the remaining immortals. Chen Lu also decided to answer his call. Thus, she appeared on the battlefield at this time. Oh, it's you. Fang Yuan looked at Chen Lu, smiling cruelly, you have finally gotten smarter. That's right, be it Chen Qi, Chen Wanyun, or Chen Liji, even Zheng Tuo died in my hands. All of your rank 7 Gu immortals are dead now, the rest of you should surrender to me, after all, a wise person submits to circumstances. Chen Li's expression turned pale, her body shook intensely. Fang Yuan admitted it outright, this was a huge blow to her mental state. Why? Why did you do that for? Chen Lu screamed in a sharp tone, tears were pouring out of her eyes, did we do anything wrong to you? Why must you do something so evil and cruel? Don't be affected by him, Chen Lu, let's get into formation. Zhou Min, who had regained her senses, shouted loudly. With Fang Yuan in the center, a jade light ball suddenly appeared over a huge surrounding area. This was a huge battle formation. With Feng Jun, Zhou Min, Chen Lu, and the other 2 immortals as the formation cores, they assembled an ancient battle formation. He Cheng, even if you are a rank 7 Gu immortal, you will die here today. That's right, we have already practiced this battle formation many times, we killed over a dozen desolate beasts and 8 ancient desolate beasts. You cannot escape from here. I will tear out your bones and tendons, and use them as offerings for the innocent souls of our comrades. He Fan Grotto Heaven's Gu immortals shouted, their morale rose sharply. Fang Yuan smiled lightly, his calm expression did not change at all. He said slowly and calmly, oh, Green City Battle Formation. He, it is only a small portion of the ancient battle formation Green City Rampage, do you think I am unaware of it? The expressions of the immortals changed, a bad feeling was emerging in them. Chen Li's expression paled even further, at this moment, she felt utter regret and hatred, she could not live with herself. Because she was the one who told Fang Yuan about this Green City battle formation. The Gu immortals in He Fan Grotto Heaven had to practice a huge formation in every generation. It was the Green City battle formation, it was used to kill desolate beasts and ancient desolate beasts, it had incredible strength. I have rank 7 cultivation level, while you people are just rank 6. Thus, I expected you to use this move. After getting into formation, you won't be able to run, right? When this battle formation is breached, you will all face a backlash, even if you do not die, you will suffer heavy injuries. Fang Yuan said in a plain tone. His tone was very calm, he did not speak loudly, but the immortals could hear him clearly for some reason. The morale that was raised earlier instantly got cut in several pieces after hearing his words. Before fighting, these Gu immortals already had wavering determination. Now, I will show all of you my true strength. Fang Yuan called out, his body shook and a loud sound was heard, the aura of Gu worms burst out from within him. Immortal killer move, Myriad Self. In an instant, tens of thousands of Fang Yuan phantoms appeared in the space inside the entire battle formation. They were all strength path phantoms. And Fang Yuan's true body was hidden among them, acting as one of the phantoms. The battle commenced at this moment. From the start, they entered the climax of the battle. Feng Jun, Zhou Min, and the other Gu immortals used their respective methods, all sorts of immortal killer moves were unleashed, causing huge damage to the Myriad Self army. Fang Yuan's strength path phantoms did not have high defense, but no matter how many were destroyed in battle, more strength path phantoms emerged and replaced them. Fang Yuan had made ample preparation before the battle. Even if he did not continue to activate Myriad Self, he had already stored hundreds of thousands of Myriad Self phantoms inside his immortal aperture in advance. He did not lack the immortal essence. Fang Yuan had a huge storage of green grape immortal essence. Feng Jun and the rest soon realized that they were in a tough spot. Without using immortal killer moves, they could not defend against the Myriad Self army attacking the battle formation. But if they used immortal killer moves, even though they could kill countless phantoms, Fang Yuan would also replenish them, their immortal essence would be wasted. In this battle of attrition in immortal essence, Fang Yuan completely had the upper hand. Do not forget about the advantage of Strength Path, that was the minimal consumption of immortal essence. Meanwhile, the advantage of Enslavement Path was in battles of attrition. Myriad Self-Killer move combined the effects of both paths, it could display the strengths of both paths at once. Fang Yuan waited patiently among the Myriad Self army, observing attentively. All sorts of information was gathered by him, he committed them to memory. After fighting for several hours, the Gu immortals of Heifan Grotto Heaven were extremely tired. Not only were they tired mentally, the immortal essence expenditure was also starting to put a toll on them. The moment they exposed weakness, Fang Yuan's true body appeared. Haha, Chen Lo, I need to thank you, without your information, how could I have killed Chen Wanyun and the others? Fang Yuan laughed loudly. Chen Lo felt like lightning had struck her, the pain in her heart could not be described with words. Using this opportunities, Fang Yuan went for the killing blow. Flying Sword Immortal Gu. A flash of light pierced Chen Li's defenses, killing her instantly. Always pick out the weakest enemy first. Fang Yuan struck at the crucial moment, immediately killing one immortal on the other side. Chen Li died on the spot. Green City battle formation became unstable instantly, it started shaking. The other Gu immortals quickly tried to stabilize it, succeeding after some effort. Next, it is time for the rest of you to die. Fang Yuan smiled sinisterly, he did not attack, instead, he went back into the Myriad Self army. The remaining 4 Gu immortals had pale expressions, a cold chill was emerging in their hearts. They were the ones encircling Fang Yuan, but at this very moment, none of these 4 Gu immortals felt any joy or excitement. His victory was assured. From the start, Fang Yuan had used the most appropriate battle tactics, establishing his current huge advantage. He was very aware about the methods of these Gu immortals, but they, on the other hand, did not know about his methods. Originally, the other party had an advantage. For example, Chen Li's concealment method, Fang Yuan could do nothing against it. It was a pity, because Fang Yuan schemed against them. Chen Li joined the battle and formed the Green City battle formation, she gave up her greatest advantage. In the end, it was because Heifan Grotto Heaven had been in peace for too long. These Gu immortals did not lack immortal Gu or resources, but they truly paled in terms of battle experience. Even though they sparred during their interactions, the experience gained from fighting on the verge of death could not be gained from friendly battles. A long while later, Fang Yuan killed 2 more Gu immortals, before breaking apart Green City battle formation. Feng Jun and Zhou Min escaped in defeat again. The 2 immortals had completely lost their courage against Fang Yuan, they did not dare to fight, they escaped towards Immortal Succession Mountain. Along the way, Fang Yuan killed Zhou Min, as Feng Jun crashed onto the peak of Immortal Succession Mountain with his heavily injured body. Heavenly Spirit, save me! He screamed loudly. This situation was quite ironic, earlier he was still plotting to suppress the Heavenly Spirit, but now, he had no choice but to seek help from it. It is not going to save you. Inside the stone pavilion, Fang Yuan's figure appeared in a flash. He spoke in a calm tone, he had no injuries on his body, he was still so charming and handsome. It was as if the battle earlier did not occur at all. Feng Jun saw Fang Yuan and shuddered in fear, he focused his attention on the brass bell Heavenly Spirit. The brass bell Heavenly Spirit had no reaction. Feng Jun had a look of despair. Why? He muttered. Why? At the next moment, he screamed again, seemingly questioning the Heavenly Spirit. But the brass bell Heavenly Spirit continued to be unmoved. Because you are all descendants of criminal immortals. Before old ancestor He Fan died, he thought of this point when leaving behind his true inheritance. Therefore, he set up this final test. Only by obtaining half of the votes of the Gu immortals inside He Fan Grotto Heaven could I inherit it. But what if you descendants of the criminal immortals bear hatred to He tribe and refuse to let our main tribe's member obtain the true inheritance? What if you cause problems for us intentionally? What will we do? Fang Yuan extended his hand, lightly touching this stone tablet. Then it can only be to kill all of you. After killing you all, I will be the only person left. Then I would also have satisfied the conditions for clearing the final test of He Fan's true inheritance. Fang Yuan spoke lightly, there was even a faint smile on his face. Feng Jun plopped onto the ground, he had an expression of despair, he was sprawled weakly. He raised his head and looked up at the sky. The azure sky which he sought to escape for so long, at the moment before his death, now seemed so endearing to him. But at the next moment, he heard Fang Yuan's words, "Now, I will give you a chance. As long as you submit to me, and serve me wholeheartedly from now on, I will spare your life." What did you say? Feng Jun's body shook, he showed an expression of disbelief. Fang Yuan repeated his words again, before saying, "You are a smart person, you are not swayed by emotions, you are unlike Zhou Min and Chen Lu. I appreciate that aspect of you. Hand over your immortal Gu and the luck path true inheritance's details, I will spare your life and give you a chance to live." Feng Jun blinked, he was moved. "You are not lying to me." He raised his head and looked at Fang Yuan, anticipation was hidden deep within his gaze. "Why would I lie to you? Killing you is as easy as breathing to me. But don't even think of bargaining with me now." Fang Yuan's expression changed, "You only have 3 breaths of time to consider it. Will you die, or surrender everything to me and submit, before making an alliance agreement?" "I surrender." At the first breath of time, Feng Jun said without hesitation. "These are all of the Gu worms that I have." At the second breath of time, Feng Jun handed over everything. Fang Yuan nodded, stretching out his hand and keeping them, with Feng Jun's cooperation, he suppressed all of them. "Please make the alliance agreement." Feng Jun breathed in deeply, he was already mentally prepared for an extremely harsh alliance agreement. Swoosh! A bloody hole appeared in his forehead. He had an expression of shock, he stared at Fang Yuan fixedly as he gradually fell onto the ground. The third breath of time had just passed. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1128, He Fan's 4 Treasures, 1/2. Chapter 1128, He Fan's 4 Treasures, 1/2. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Fang Yuan gathered Feng Jun's corpse. Together with the Gu immortal corpses that he had collected earlier, Fang Yuan had a total of 9. And he also had 9 corresponding Gu immortal souls. Such gains are truly rare. For Gu immortals in the outside world, even if they die, they may self-detonate. Among the Gu immortals in He Fan Grotto Heaven, only Feng Jun has some brains. This person was able to give in when needed. Unfortunately, after I gained the upper hand, the situation was firmly within my grasp, he could not do anything. His eventual surrender was out of desperation, too bad for him, his enemy was me. Fang Yuan sighed as he set aside these thoughts. He had won. It was time for the rewards. He turned around, entering the stone pavilion, he raised his head and looked at the brass bell heavenly spirit on the pillar, he said, "Right now, I am the only Gu immortal inside He Fan Grotto Heaven, I vote for myself to inherit He Fan's true inheritance." The brass bell heavenly spirit was silent for a moment before shaking, emitting a loud bell sound. Next, the stone pillars in the pavilion radiated with pure white light. The white light was not painful to look at, it was very gentle. As the bright light shone, the stone tablet became more transparent, it turned into a wall of light. Inside the wall of light, there were several shadowy figures. And on the surface of the wall, there were several lines of words. Fang Yuan looked, the words were, "The indistinct figures in the stone tablet are the contents of the true inheritance. The inheritor just needs to retrieve them by putting their hands in." The final line was an instruction by He Fan, descendant of He tribe, inheritor of the inheritance. "May you achieve great things in life, do not let down the reputation of He tribe." Fang Yuan looked at it and sighed. Old ancestor He Fan had put in immense effort in setting up this true inheritance. He thought of every aspect. But a dead person was like an extinguished candle. Even a legendary figure like himself could not predict everything in the future. The incredibly strong He tribe had been wiped out, and He Fan's true inheritance was taken by an outsider like Fang Yuan. The world had changed, times were different. New forces prosper while old forces vanish. This was the changing of eras. Fang Yuan settled his mood. He started acting according to the description on the wall. He stretched out his left hand, to enter the wall of light. The white light became brighter. As it shone on his left hand, Fang Yuan's left arm became transparent as well. Fang Yuan could see his skin, bones, flesh, and even his blood flowing in his vessels. A small obstruction could be felt ahead. Fang Yuan's left hand touched the wall of light. It was as if he was touching an icy wall. At the same time, he noticed, the white light shone on his blood and caused a reaction. His blood moved more quickly, the color also turned from bright red to dark red, before returning back to normal. Next, the wall in front of his left hand became soft like water. Fang Yuan's left hand easily got through the stone tablet like he was going into water. Fang Yuan, however, felt a chill in his heart. He thought, so close. This light wall is a test towards my blood. Thankfully, I made ample preparations. I integrated blood acid immortal Gu into familiar face and modified the killer move to disguise my blood as well. Otherwise, my efforts would have been in vain. This He Fan is so hard to deal with. Fang Yuan regained his cool. He started to assess this wall of light. From the outside, he could see that there were 4 shadows in the wall. They were uneven in placement. The largest shadow was like a ball. It was the size of a basin and was at the most central area of the wall. On the upper right corner, there was a sharp shadow. It resembled a rock. On the left side, there was also a shadow. It looked like intertwined threads. There was also one spot at the bottom. This shadow was the smallest, like a finger. Fang Yuan had worked so hard to obtain the famous He Fan's true inheritance, but the contents seemed to be quite minimal. Because of where he was standing, Fang Yuan's left hand went to the left of the wall of light. He grabbed towards the shadow closest to him. He held on to this thread-like shadow. The shadow had a rough feeling. Fang Yuan felt like he was touching an old tree branch. Next, Fang Yuan stretched out his hand and pulled out the mysterious shadow. Once out of the wall, the aura was exposed. Evidently, these were Gu worms. These Gu worms were coiled together. They had similar appearance. They were like ginseng roots or tree roots. They were not immortal Gu. They were just mortal Gu. But even so, Fang Yuan's eyes shined. His breathing became rougher at once. Mortal and immortal Gu were vastly different. Immortal Gu were unique. Mortal Gu could not compare to immortal Gu, but there was a huge exception to this rule. That was lifespan Gu. That's right, Fang Yuan pulled out a batch of lifespan Gu. This was expected, yet unexpected. Earlier, when old immortal Xianxia had asked Fang Yuan for benefits, he mentioned lifespan Gu. Thus, Fang Yuan was mentally prepared for it. But to think there was so many. This is indeed a lot of lifespan Gu. Fang Yuan began to refine the lifespan Gu. Mortal Gu could be refined using primeval essence. Even though the lifespan Gu was not his, Fang Yuan had passed the test. He was the acknowledged inheritor. As the white light shone, Fang Yuan quickly refined these lifespan Gu successfully. He found out, these lifespan Gu grant 720 years of lifespan in total. Immense gains. Old immortal Xianxia had thought there would be at least 300 years worth of lifespan Gu, but Fang Yuan could tell now that he had underestimated it. He Fan Grotto Heaven had over twice that amount of years worth of lifespan Gu. These lifespan Gu have great value. I can use them for myself. Who in this world would complain about having longer lifespan? But I still have about 80 years to live, my lifespan is sufficient. Even if I do not use these lifespan Gu, I can use them for transactions. In transactions between Gu immortals, immortal essence stones were just basic currency. Lifespan Gu had much greater value than immortal essence stones. No Gu immortal would not want lifespan Gu. In many high-end transactions, immortal essence stones were unusable, Gu immortals only wanted lifespan Gu. Lifespan Gu was an absolute hard currency out there. After a long time of consideration, the lifespan Gu were all refined, becoming Fang Yuan's property. Fang Yuan placed the handful of lifespan Gu in his sovereign immortal aperture, keeping them securely. He was not planning to use these lifespan Gu yet. Actually, it had been a long time since He Fan Grotto Heaven was created. It is not strange that so many lifespan Gu were accumulated. When can my sovereign immortal aperture produce lifespan Gu as well? Fang Yuan was rather fascinated by the prospect. But he knew that he was far from this goal at this point. Even though he was earning a lot of profits each month, those were his prior accumulations as an immortal zombie. His immortal aperture's development was still in the basic stage. Only when he gathers enough production and resources to sustain the feeding of all his immortal Gu could those initial developments be considered complete. Fang Yuan suddenly thought of Langyip Blessed Land. Compared to Langyip Blessed Land, He Fan Grotto Heaven's existence is very short. Long Hair Ancestor was a person from 300,000 years ago, a legendary figure of the medieval antiquity era. He Fan Grotto Heaven has about 700 years of lifespan Gu. Then how many years does Langyip Blessed Land have? Thinking about this, Fang Yuan's eyes shined. Langyip Blessed Land definitely has much more lifespan Gu. No wonder Langyip Land's spirit can use up some to feed wisdom Gu. Fang Yuan could understand Heavenly Court's actions at once. In the 500 years of his previous life, Heavenly Court attacked Langyip Blessed Land. Even though they sacrificed Feng Jiu Gu, they went ahead without balking. Lifespan Gu was likely one of the main reasons. Thinking about it, the geezers in Heavenly Court were lacking lifespan, they could only sustain their lives through sleeping. It was easy to see how much attraction lifespan Gu had towards them. Fang Yuan's gaze returned to the center of the wall. This shadow was the largest. It is at the center. Is this a hint that this is the most precious treasure inside He Fan's true inheritance? Fang Yuan's heart jumped. He stretched out his left hand towards the wall of light. Soon, he touched that shadow. It had an icy feeling, but the shadow was not smooth on the surface, it had many protrusions and holes, it was like a handful of sesame. Fang Yuan tried to move it. Very heavy. Normal human strength could not carry it. Fang Yuan activated his strength path Mortal Gu. After gaining strength, he took it out with one hand. After seeing this lump of shadow, Fang Yuan had a surprised look on his face. This was not one entity, it was the combination of countless bodies. It was a ball of ants. Black ants, all gathered to fill the size of a basin, that were extremely heavy. Countless black ants were collected in a ball shape, they were extremely compacted and tight. These ants were not ordinary ants, they were Mortal Gu. The previous item being Mortal Gu was fine, because it was lifespan Gu, it had greater value than immortal Gu from many Gu immortals' perspectives. But this was also Mortal Gu. Fang Yuan felt perplexed and a bit confused. Based on his knowledge, he could not recognize what this Gu worm was. But forget that, Fang Yuan felt that since it was part of He Fan's true inheritance, even as a Mortal Gu, it could not be bad. Thus, he began to refine it. Mortal Gu could be refined using primeval essence. Fang Yuan was a Gu immortal, he had unlimited primeval essence. Layers of black ants were refined by him, becoming his property. Under Fang Yuan's manipulation, the ants split apart, revealing the center of the ball. Oh! Fang Yuan's expression changed, his gaze became sharp, because he felt the aura of immortal Gu. Actually, at the center of this ball of ants, there was something good. An immortal Gu. Ordinary and mortal Gu were finally completely refined. They landed on the ground. There was only one Gu left in Fang Yuan's hands. Immortal Gu. Compared to the other black ant mortal Gu, it was many times larger. It had the form of an ant, it had feelers, small legs, a large abdomen, it looked very chubby. Is this the queen of the ant group? Fang Yuan guessed randomly. This immortal Gu had a strong aura, it was at a high level, it was a rank 7 immortal Gu. As for what it was, Fang Yuan did not know. He could not recognize it. But whatever, he was going to refine it first. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1129, Hey Fans for Treasure, 2 halves. Chapter 1129, Hey Fans for Treasure, 2 halves. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Refining immortal Gu could not be done with primeval essence, he needed immortal essence. At this time, Fang Yuan took a look at the brass bell heavenly spirit, thinking about it, he directly used his green grape immortal essence to refine this Gu. The brass bell heavenly spirit had no reaction, on the surface, Fang Yuan could not tell what mentality it had. It was just a bell after all, it had no expressions. The refinement process was very smooth, the rank 7 immortal Gu resembling an ant queen did not resist, it cooperated with him. But it was still a rank 7 Gu, Fang Yuan's green grape immortal essence was greatly expended. Now, my stockpile of green grape immortal essence has dropped again. Fang Yuan reminded himself. In this trip to obtain He Fan's true inheritance, he had consumed a lot of green grape immortal essence. His expenditure was mostly in battle, after all, other than Myriad Self, Sword Escape and Flying Sword Immortal Gu were rank 7, his Sword Path Killer moves used rank 7 Immortal Gu as the cores. Even though the battles were not intense, his green grape immortal essence consumption was huge. After going back, I need to stock up on immortal essence, otherwise, I can't feel safe. A moment later, Fang Yuan refined this rank 7 immortal Gu and kept it in his immortal aperture. There were only 2 shadows left in the wall of light. The shadow at the bottom had the smallest size, Fang Yuan left it to the end. He stretched his hand in and grabbed the shadow at the top right corner. This shadow was like a rock, but when Fang Yuan touched it for the first time, it reacted. This shadow was very cold. Fang Yuan took it out, it was indeed a piece of ice. The upper portion of the ice was sealing a Gu worm. Naturally, Fang Yuan's attention was drawn to it. Even though it was sealed in ice without any aura leaking. But Fang Yuan's eyes shone, he could recognize this was an immortal Gu, Year Gu. It was like a ladybug, thumb size and black in color, there were golden markings on its shell. The golden markings were bright and shining, they showed images of a fierce beast growling, the sharp and menacing teeth left a deep impression. As for what beast it was unclear. Oh, Year Gu. Fang Yuan sighed. This was a famous Gu among Time Path Immortal Gu. Fang Yuan had a deep impression towards it. Because it was very unique. When Gu immortals expend immortal materials, they could parallel refine a Year Gu continuously. Normal refinement and reverse refinement were mainstream in refinement path, parallel refinement was very rare. Gu worms that could be parallel refined were very rare. Year Gu was one of them. Mortal level Year Gu were less than 10 years. There was 1 Year Gu, 2 Year Gu, 5 Year Gu, and others. When the Year Gu rises to rank 6, it would become an immortal Gu, unique in the world. Rank 6 Year Gu were at least 10 years. A 10-year immortal level Year Gu could be parallel refined using immortal materials, to make it 20 Year Gu, 38 Year Gu, or at its highest, 99 Year Gu. 100 Year Gu was rank 7, to refine a 10 Year Gu to 100 Year Gu, it was not parallel refinement but normal refinement to increase rank instead. Refinement in this case was tens to hundreds of times as difficult as parallel refinement, with equally low success rate. 1000 Year Gu was rank 8, in theory, 10,000 Year Gu would be rank 9. But in history, there had never been a 10,000 Year Gu. But rank 8,000 Year Gu had existed before. The use of Year Gu was very unique. Corresponding to the usage by the Gu immortal, the number of years would fall continuously. For example, a 50-year Gu might become a 20-year Gu after one use. There was a specification when using Year Gu, that it should not go overboard. For example, if a 1000-year Gu is used and becomes 900-year Gu, it would fall from rank 8 to rank 7. To increase its rank again through refinement, it would be troublesome and risky. Strictly speaking, Year Gu was a consumable immortal Gu. But it was not a one-time consumable Gu like Sovereign Immortal Fetus Gu. It could be expended but replenished again. This was a very special case among Gu worms. So He Fan had the immortal Gu Year in his possession. One good thing about Year Gu is that it has no issues in terms of food. It has the same food as Spring-Autumn Cicada, they both consume the water of the river of time. However, how can I refine it? Fong Yuan was unsure. The Year Gu in front of him was sealed by almost transparent ice. Fong Yuan looked at this ice, he felt that this ice was quite special too. Its effect was similar to fossilization or amber, it sealed the Year Immortal Gu inside ice, so that it hibernated without leaking its aura. Why did He Fan seal Year Gu? Wait, this is... While observing, Fong Yuan had a new discovery. He realized that there was some flowing water sealed at the bottom of the ice. This is water. Fong Yuan shook it, he could clearly see that there was water flowing, he could even hear a soft sound. Water was sealed in ice, it was really quite strange. Fong Yuan's attention had been drawn to Year Gu earlier. In comparison, the flowing water was not eye-catching. At this moment, when Fong Yuan inspected it again, he realized, this ice was huge, Year Gu only occupied a small portion, the flowing water took more than half of the space below. It gave a feeling that the ice was not sealing Year Gu, but the water instead. To be given such treatment, is this flowing water a rank 9 immortal material that surpasses rank 8? Fong Yuan had a bold guess. Rank 9 immortal material, it could be used to refine rank 9 immortal Gu. In this world, they were rare, having immense value. A portion of rank 9 immortal material being sealed like this was understandable. Fong Yuan could not find a way to remove the ice, he could only set it aside, he held it with his right hand as his left hand entered the wall of light again. This time, he went to the final shadow. Taking it out, it was a rank 5 information path mortal Gu. The details recorded inside were about He Fan's true inheritance, it had immense value. Firstly, the introduction to the Gu worms. Fong Yuan took his first glance and saw the information about the ant ball. So the rank 7 immortal Gu at the center of the ant ball is the time path immortal Gu, after. 1. After sounds the same as Ant Queen if you read it in Chinese. Rank 7 after immortal Gu. The recorded information noted the specifications of feeding after immortal Gu. The feeding of after immortal Gu was quite unique. This immortal Gu could eat anything. The feeding style was very unique too. It produced black ant mortal Gu on its own, it sent them out to feed on all sorts of immortal materials before using these nutrients on itself. Any sort of immortal material can feed after immortal Gu. The point is not about the immortal materials, but in preserving these black ant mortal Gu. These black ant mortal Gu were tough and could devour immortal materials, digesting them and retaining the nutrients. But they were just mortal Gu. Once too many of them were destroyed, the immortal Gu, after, would starve. Even though the immortal Gu could produce black ant mortal Gu, it could only produce one every month. If there were too few black ant mortal Gu, and after immortal Gu could not be fed, it would die of hunger. After all, this immortal Gu, after, could not feed itself. Fong Yuan felt enlightened, he continued reading, about the information on the ice. The ice itself was a newly created type of rank 8 immortal material, it was created by immortal Bing Ren. The latter was invited by He Fan and went ahead to seal his 2 immortal Gu. One immortal Gu was Year Gu, it was only rank 6. Fong Yuan had recognized it already. The other immortal Gu was the flowing water. This was the greatest treasure within He Fan's true inheritance. It was named Years Flow Like Water, it was rank 8. Rank 8 Time Path Immortal Gu, Years Flow Like Water. Rank 8 Gu immortals were rare, rank 8 immortal Gu were rarer, and had very great value. Many rank 8 Gu immortals did not even have a single rank 8 immortal Gu, they could not find one even after endless searching. He Fan was a legendary character, the formidable champion who led He tribe to a domineering state, but in his life, he only had one rank 8 immortal Gu, years flow like water. Fang Yuan's situation was quite special. As of now, he was a rank 6 Gu immortal, but he already had 3 rank 8 immortal Gu. One was Attitude Gu, one was Wisdom Sword Gu, and now the third was Years Flow Like Water. Ordinary Gu immortals usually had a lack of immortal Gu. Fang Yuan's problem instead was that he had too many, and could not use them all optimally. Looking at some of his immortal Gu like Wisdom Sword, he had not even started to use them yet. This rank 8 immortal Gu, Years Flow Like Water, had one effect, that was to produce Year Gu. The more immortal essence expended by the Gu immortal, the more Year Gu produced, they could even produce immortal level Year Gu. Of course, the rule of immortal Gu being unique still holds. Right now, this rank 6 Year Gu was around, unless Fang Yuan used and expended it, he could not create an immortal level Year Gu from Years Flow Like Water. If Year Immortal Gu still existed, no matter how much immortal essence Fang Yuan used, he could only get mortal Year Gu. Fang Yuan continued to read. Immortal Gu Years Flow Like Water had 2 good points. One was that it had a low usage requirement, even rank 6 Gu immortals could use it. As long as they used green grape immortal essence, they would receive Year Gu, even though the quantity was less than when using rank 7 or 8 immortal essence. The second point was that Years Flow Like Water was easy to feed. It also fed on the water of the river of time, just like Year Gu and Spring-Autumn Cicada. This solved Fang Yuan's greatest problem. The feeding of rank 8 immortal Gu was a huge burden. However, Years Flow Like Water had a flaw. This was clearly listed in the information path Gu worm. Once the seal of Years Flow Like Water was removed, its immortal Gu aura would leak, Year beasts would be lured towards it and would attack. Year beasts, a type of special fierce beast that were rare even in the 5 regions and 9 heavens, yet commonly seen in the river of time. In terms of battle strength, there were Desolate Beast, Ancient Desolate Beast, and Immemorial Desolate Beast level Year beasts. The food of Year beasts was Year Gu. The river of time was the paradise of time path Gu worms, there were a vast number of wild time path Gu worms in it. Year beasts were one of them, they ate Year Gu as food. The higher the rank of the Year Gu, the more Year beasts would be attracted to hunt them. In fact, immortal level Year Gu could also lure Year beasts to attack. Even placing the immortal level Year Gu inside the immortal aperture would not work. Because in ordinary immortal apertures, there was a tributary of the river of time. When Year beasts smell the Year Gu, they would travel into the tributary from the river of time, and directly appear in the immortal aperture. Immortal level Year Gu had a huge attraction to the Year beasts, Years Flow Like Water, which could endlessly produce Year Gu, had hundreds or thousands of times as much attraction as immortal level Year Gu for the Year beasts. Precisely because of this, when He Fan set up the true inheritance, he sealed Year Gu and Years Flow Like Water, not exposing a trace of their auras. At this point, Fang Yuan had completely understood what Gu worms he had obtained. Next were the following important details. Or more accurately, the immortal killer moves. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1130, Usage of He Fan's Gu. Chapter 1130, Usage of He Fan's Gu. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. The introductions of countless immortal killer moves were displayed before Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan restrained his excitement, he inspected carefully. There were immortal killer moves that encompassed offense, defense, movement, healing, and other aspects. These were all time path immortal killer moves, the cores used were mostly Year Gu and After Gu. Few of the immortal killer moves used the immortal Gu Years Flow Like Water as a core. Using a rank 8 immortal Gu as a core of an immortal killer move would naturally produce incredible effects. In this regard, Fang Yuan had personal experience. He had familiar face, it was a legendary method that used the rank 8 Attitude Gu as the core. Of course, with Fang Yuan's rank 6 cultivation level, his green grape immortal essence could not activate years flow like water. It was unlike Attitude Gu, which only needed mental energy to use. Attitude Gu is the legendary immortal Gu recorded in the Legends of Renzu. In terms of ease of use, years flow like water cannot compare to it. However, thinking about it, didn't He Fan give Attitude Gu away to He Feng Yu? These immortal killer moves were truly eye-opening to Fang Yuan. Many theories were involved. The coordination of Gu worms was stated clearly. He only took a look, but he felt that he had already benefited greatly from the knowledge gained. There were more than 30 immortal killer moves. Some of the immortal killer moves were split between rank 6, 7, and 8 levels. In some of their descriptions, He Fan had also left behind his insight and experiences when creating and using them in the past. Bountiful Year. Fang Yuan's gaze was fixed. He discovered a rather interesting immortal killer move. Bountiful Year. This was the name of an immortal killer move. The core immortal Gu used was immortal level Year Gu. There were tens of thousands of supplementary mortal Gu. It was a tough process to activate the move. He Fan had left behind his experience in using it. Even for a legendary figure like him, when using this immortal killer move himself, he would need 2 or 3 days of preparation to execute it. The expenditure of immortal essence was huge, but Bountiful Year's effect was that for the next year, starting right from the moment of successful activation of the killer move, all of the resources inside the immortal aperture would be produced at a higher rate. This was an immortal killer move used to develop the immortal aperture. It was a very rare move, but it had great use and value. He Fan also praised this immortal killer move greatly. According to the description, he was not the creator of this immortal killer move, he had exchanged for it with a person called Pill Immortal. Fang Yuan took a closer look. Bountiful Year needed to use many mortal Gu. If he wanted to prepare for it, he would need to buy them from Treasure Yellow Heaven. He was definitely going to use this killer move. But not only did he need a lot of immortal essence, there was a lot of expenditure in terms of Year Gu as well. The Year Gu that I have is only a little over the 100-year level. I need to parallel refine it until I can use Bountiful Year. Otherwise, if it falls to the level of immortal Gu, that would be a severe loss. Fang Yuan continued to read. Among these killer moves, some had incredible power, some were extremely wondrous, but to Fang Yuan, they were not especially important. Fang Yuan had never forgotten about his true goal all along. That was to find a method to delay the calamities and tribulations in his immortal aperture. Days passed like years. His eyes flashed, he saw his target. This immortal killer move also used immortal level Year Gu as the core, with a huge number of supplementary day Gu. Once used, it could slow down the time in the immortal aperture. Simply from the name itself, the effect was that 1 day in the immortal aperture would be extended to the length of a year. However, He Fan had noted with great caution, extending 1 day into the equivalent of a year was purely theoretical. The actual effect varied greatly based on circumstances. For example, a Strength Path Gu Immortal with primarily Strength Path Dao marks would receive much lower effect when using this Time Path Killer move. If a Time Path Gu Immortal used it on themselves, like He Fan, the effect would be amplified by the Gu Immortal's Time Path Dao marks, the effect would be much better. And also, using the same killer move on a low-grade blessed land and a high-grade blessed land would produce different results. Months pass like years. Fang Yuan continued to read. There was another immortal killer move that was very similar to days pass like years. It could also slow the rate of time in the immortal aperture, it could turn what would be 1 month in the immortal aperture into the duration of a year. The core Gu was still immortal level Year Gu, but the supplementary Gu were month Gu now. Day Gu, month Gu, Year Gu. These were all Time Path Gu worms that were closely related. Other than days pass like years and months pass like years, there were also 2 other immortal killer moves. They were called years pass like months and years pass like days. The former 2 were used to slow the time in the immortal aperture, the latter 2 were used to accelerate the time in the immortal aperture. Slowing the rate of time in the immortal aperture meant that the calamities and tribulations would be further apart. For example, in Fang Yuan's case, he had to undergo tribulation every 2 months in the outside world's time. After using days pass like years, he would only need to undergo the next tribulation in decades or even a century. Seeing this, Fang Yuan finally let out a sigh of relief. He felt great joy. In the first 3 earthly calamities, he was almost forced to his wits' end, he could only brace himself as he challenged them. But now he had this immortal killer move, the situation had changed. From now on, Fang Yuan could decide when to undergo tribulation, he could either delay or hasten it, there was a huge advantage in this. But right now, I do not need to slow the time in the immortal aperture. I should undergo tribulations, increasing my Dao marks and raising my cultivation level. With Chu Du helping me, there is a high chance of passing. Fang Yuan thought. Once he slowed the immortal aperture's time, there were flaws. His resource would grow more slowly, Fang Yuan's cultivation level would also rise more slowly. Now, I should prepare these Gu worms, the immortal Gu are already here, but I need a huge quantity of day Gu and month Gu. Even if I buy them inside Treasure Yellow Heaven, I will need to spend a long time collecting them. He Fan's true inheritance did not leave behind any day Gu, month Gu, and mortal year Gu. Fang Yuan had to purchase these mortal Gu himself. Even though this task had its difficulties, as long as Fang Yuan was determined, he could achieve it. These 4 immortal killer moves form a set, they are specially used to alter the rate of time in the immortal aperture. He Fan, who created these killer moves, had incredible talent. At the end, He Fan even noted, if the inheritor could obtain immortal level day Gu or month Gu, these 4 immortal killer moves would not need to consume so many mortal day Gu and month Gu, the effect would even rise greatly. I was already extremely fortunate to have obtained immortal level year Gu. As for immortal level day Gu and month Gu, I can forget about it. Fang Yuan was clear of the situation. His goal in this trip had been fulfilled, Fang Yuan was satisfied with it. He continued to look. Immortal killer move, years grant strength. Soon, Fang Yuan saw a very interesting killer move. This killer move used Year Gu as the core, it could grant the Gu immortal immense physical strength. The more Year Gu expended, the greater the strength obtained. This was He Fan's own creation, he used time path Gu worms to achieve a strength path effect. Immortal killer move, 100 years harmony. It also used Year Gu as the core, with a large number of supplementary information path mortal Gu, to create an alliance agreement that could last for 100 years. This was a use of time path Gu worms to unleash the might of information path. I can use this with Chu Du, after all, our current alliance agreement was solely handled by him, it is not reliable. Fang Yuan rapidly had an idea. Immortal killer move, unlucky year. This was an immortal killer move that used years flow like water as the core. Fang Yuan could not use it now, he could only look on in captivation. Using time path to achieve the mystical effect of luck path. This was an offensive killer move, once the enemy was hit, they would experience a huge fall in luck for a year, nothing they do would go smoothly. As expected of He Fan, an expert even among rank 8 Gu immortals. If he was born in the central continent 10 great ancient sects, he would definitely be invited into Heavenly Court, he would be an elite among Heavenly Court's Gu immortals. To be able to use one's own path to mimic other paths and achieve their mystical effects, this was the symbol of a rank 8 expert. Ordinary rank 8 Gu immortals could not reach this stage. He Fan's strength was similar to Heavenly Court's Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord. Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord was a rank 8 Gu immortal cultivating wisdom path. But when Bo Qing awakened, and his sword lights were sent out over central continent, in order to fix Heaven Overseeing Tower, he actually used wisdom path methods. And the effect was even better than ordinary refinement path methods. This was using wisdom path to achieve the effects of refinement path. Oh, endless trouble. What move is this? Towards the end, Fang Yuan saw an immortal killer move. Its core was after immortal Gu, once the Gu Immortal activated it, they could delay the current calamity or tribulation to the time of the next one, and face them together. Fang Yuan's heart jumped. There was He Fan's advice left inside the description of this killer move. This killer move could not be used excessively, even though the calamity or tribulation would be delayed until the next one, it would anger heaven's will, the following calamities or tribulations would increase greatly in strength. This immortal killer move was created by He Fan, but he only used it once and never again. To warn his descendants, He Fan intentionally gave a name like Endless Trouble. I can only use it in emergencies. It is not a standard method, but it is definitely something very useful. Fang Yuan was surprised and joyful to have obtained this. Anger heaven's will? He could not care less. Heaven's will was bent on killing him anyway. Fang Yuan's existence was the biggest cause of heaven's will's anger to begin with. After spending some time, Fang Yuan finally finished reading the contents of the immortal killer moves. It was very comprehensive. There were even details about the development of an immortal aperture. In fact, there were even details about the mimicking of other paths' effects. Even though He Fan's true inheritance only had these few immortal Gu. But by cooperating with mortal Gu and forming countless immortal killer moves, the Gu Immortal could deal with any situation that arises. This was the norm in the cultivation world. Even though He Fan was strong, he was not even of one of the 10 extreme physiques. Thus, he raised very few Gu worms. They were all time path Gu worms, he could support them. The number of Gu worms was not crucial, the Gu Immortal who uses them was most important. He Fan was the best example. Even though he only had 3 immortal Gu, his use of Gu could unleash incredible effects. There was no strongest immortal Gu, only strongest Gu Immortal. This was what the sentence was referring to. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know in the report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible.